we have a partnership with All Faiths Food Bank for our food pantry, partnership with Humane Society, the partnership with Burlington Coat Factory, and we're trying to get back into the hospital with COVID. That put everything kind of.
That's something that's happening in general lab. I mean, wouldn't it be nice if there was if that is something that's being networked out there, that piece was part of it? Thanks. Good conversation.
Off now, I can't turn it on. Good morning. I would like to call this retreat/work session for October 27th to order. Superintendent?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. We wanted to give you an update as far as where we are with our data district-wide. And as you know, over the past year and a half with COVID and the different things that we've had to do for our instructional delivery methods and so forth, as you know, takes its toll. And then there's COVID slide across the United States, across Florida, and all of those items that we've been dealing with over the last year and a half. Wanted to bring you up to speed as far as what does our data look like district-wide, and then also, more importantly, what are we doing with that? And how are we helping our students to be successful? How are we making up for that COVID slides, so to speak, across the district? We have eight principals here today that we decided to invite to talk to us a little bit about what they're doing at their schools. You know, obviously we can't have 50 principals coming in. We'd be here for a couple of days going through that, but we do have 8, and I appreciate them being here. Also, I appreciate all the staff here today. Many people are involved in putting this presentation together, so thank you to them. And I do want to also thank our principals and our teachers, in case they're listening today. You know, they have done a fantastic job over the past couple of years, especially with the COVID piece. But, you know, if you look at what they do on a daily basis, you know, we have professional teachers, we have professional principals and assistant principals who just really do a fantastic job of analyzing data and trying to understand what each student needs and creating some sort of personalized instructional plan for them. And so I just want to say thank you to all of them for the great job that they do. And so, yes. Yeah. And as you know, some of what you'll see today as far as the data is concerned, you know, obviously it's not all rosy, especially coming out of a couple of COVID years. But it's not rosy, but it is real. And it's something we need to look at, we need to address, we need to fix some things, and we need to hear how we're going to do that. And I think that's very important for all of us as we move forward. But I can guarantee you this, our principals and our teachers are moving forward. They are looking at the data, and they are making the corrections and the acceleration and remediation that is needed for our students to be successful. And so I'm really looking forward to another good 3/4 of a year with everybody as far as helping our students and our families with this information and what we're going to do. But with that, I'll stop talking and we'll get to the meat of what we're trying to do here. So I'm going to turn it over to Chris Renoff, and he will lead us through our presentation today. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you very much. Good morning, and thank you all board members for the opportunity to be here with you this morning. When I say we're excited, that is an understatement. We really are excited to be able to be here with you this morning to engage in a conversation about data that will provide you with a broad overview of data from a variety of sources, not only FSA and iReady, but really looking at the school data as well. You're going to hear from the team here, but you're also going to hear from our principals, as Dr. Aspin already said, and we really want to highlight some noted patterns and trends that we see. We want to accent both the positives as well as any areas of opportunity, and then underscoring the relationship of this data and the work that is happening each and every day in our schools to our strategic plan. I want to just say right up front, if there's anyone that feels like they need a deeper dive, want to go ahead and get into individual pieces of data, data that we don't share with you today, we, members of the team, happy to meet with you one-on-one to kind of go ahead and drill down even further to make sure if you have any questions about that. And then the other piece is I would just like to say we're happy to also come back and offer a mid-year check kind of as we get additional data in our hands. We want to be able to go ahead and provide you with that update. So if that is helpful, we're happy to do that as well. In addition, we just really, and that's why Dr. Johnson and Mr. Cantis are here. They want to share our intentional response to the data and what that looks like as they meet and tour around each of our individual schools. And then really what you're going to hear the most of, and that is from the experts, our principals and how they put their strategies into action in the schools and in those classrooms working with kids each and every day. It is about recovery and acceleration, just as Dr. Asplund just said. We've got an exceptional team here with us today. Obviously, we've got Dr. Cantalupo, Dr. Johnson, and Mr. Cantis, again, and our proud principals from an array of schools. We wanted to make sure that we brought a variety of schools to you today to kind of talk about what do you do with the data? You know, when you have it, what do you do with it? What does it look like? And we didn't want to bring all elementary, all middle, or all high, or combination schools, charter schools, et cetera. We just thought bring a bouquet of schools so that you can see that, wow, leave just knowing that it is happening. It's happening differently in each and one of our schools, but boy, oh boy, great work is happening with our kids and with our teachers. So we have Miss Amy Archer from Garden, Miss Susan Nations from Wilkinson, Dr. Sharika Evans from Suncoast School of Innovative Studies, Tara Tanush from Sarasota Arts and Sciences, Mr. Ray Wilson from Laurel Nokomis, Mrs. Jamie Lowitz from Oak Park School, Dr. Stephen Covert from Pineview, and Ms. Rachel Shelley from Booker High School. So in an effort to manage and honor everybody's time, we plan to present in the following order, and with transition times and question opportunities built in throughout the process. So Dr. Cantalupo and I will start providing an overview and kind of setting the stage. Dr. Johnson and Mr. Cantis, again, will talk a little bit about the response to the data at the school levels, and then, of course, our fabulous principals, elementary, charter, and then secondary principals. So with that, I would just like to go ahead and make sure that the presentation is up. And so before we move forward and talk about the data, I thought it was really, really, really important that we take a moment to just take a quick look back, a trip down memory lane, if you will, and just to kind of reorient everybody on what's happened over the last 1.5 to 2 years. We need to remember where we've been, what we've been through, but what we've also been able to accomplish. And there are some key lessons that we want to make sure that we've learned and take with us as we're moving forward. As you can see, totally unexpected, full shutdown. Yes, in March of 2020, basically from an instructional lens, and I'm not going to talk about food nutrition or operations, but from an instructional lens, what did that mean? It basically meant the development of an instructional continuity plan to help mitigate the impact of the shutdown on learning loss on our students and our families. We had to transition 43,000 students, 43,000 plus students and their families and the entire district to remote learning. We assembled a massive plan for tech dissemination and supports for families, devices, hotspots, learning management system access, packets, hotline support, mental health supports, wraparound services, just to name a few. No FSA. And we also weren't able to engage in summer reading camp or summer learning academies like we had done on a regular basis. However, we were able to go ahead and assemble, kudos to our team and to our amazing teachers and leaders, remote personalized learning in Summer Boost for the first time to keep kids connected over those few months before we re-entered the school year. In August of 2020, so the preparation began, reopening preparation as we embarked onto uncharted territory. There was an emergency order that basically said students and families should have access both in person and or remote. We remember that, and there was a lot of compassion and grace throughout the district and across our state. We We had to purchase, install, and train teachers for concurrent teaching, something that was brand new to everybody here in Sarasota. Build and enhance a digital presence for all our students and our families. Design systems to account for students, assignments, engagement, etc. And facilitate communication and progress monitoring plans as well. All along, we were preparing classrooms and schools to mitigate efforts of the pandemic when they were going to be returning. Yes, August 20 through June of 2021, it's a year everyone will remember. Not try to forget, but a year everyone will remember. We had varied instructional models. We had face-to-face, we had concurrent, we had full-time remote learning. We had instructional vacancy challenges from early retirements to leave of absences and long-term substitutes in our classroom. We adjusted assessment administration. Some assessments early in the year were taken at home, while others were taken face-to-face. We had mitigation efforts like social distancing and desk shields that limited collaboration among students and small group instruction with their teacher. And yes, contact tracing and quarantining was happening on a daily basis. Despite these unimaginable challenges, our students, incredible staff, the leadership at our schools not only survived, they thrived. The silver linings and lessons learned basically are these. One, never underestimate what we can accomplish when we all work together. We all are in this together. We are creative, critical thinkers, and exceptional problem solvers. We cannot underestimate our own abilities. Technology is our friend most of the time. And let's not forget and leverage the lessons learned moving forward. I want to thank you for the opportunity to reflect, to remember, to recognize the extraordinary efforts, as Dr. Asplund said, of our staff and our leaders, our families, and our students throughout the entire pandemic. Can we please give them another round of applause? And now, before I turn it over to Dr. Cantalupo to provide a broad overview of the district's data, I put this slide up there, and I'm not sure if anybody understands exactly what that means, but basically, it's something that we use with our leaders in conversation and also with our teachers. When we're looking at the data, there's so much data out there. Basically, we use this to kind of guide our process and our thinking process. 20 to 30% of the time, you should really be looking and analyzing the data, looking at the patterns and trends. 70 to 80% of the time is when you really need to go ahead and strategically plan and act upon the data. What does the data tell us? What do we do with it? How does the district, how do our school leaders, our teachers, and students use the data? What strategies do we utilize to get everyone to own the data so it makes a difference in our planning moving forward? With that, I will turn it over to Dr. Cantalupo to kind of give an overview of our data.
You want to?
I can, if you want.
Yeah, I want to.
Okay.
So I don't mess it up. Good morning, everybody. So I'm going to start here, beginning with the big picture, looking at our district grade. So the first set of data points we'll review is that. It provides a broad stroke to look at the data in several key areas. If you know the components of district grade, they're all listed here on the right. We look at ELA achievement, ELA learning gain, low quartile, mathematics achievement, learning gain, low quartile learning gain, our science achievement, social studies, middle school acceleration, grad rate, and college and career. One thing I want to say before we even delve into it a little bit is that each, I would say, in most years, there are nuances to this calculation. It is very complex, and it's not necessarily always comparing apples to apples. So although we'll look at it comparing 2019 to 2021, because of course we didn't have anything in 2020, we'll see some trends and some things that can guide us in the big picture. But one thing that's noteworthy, I do want to say when we look at learning gains, is that especially at the elementary level, we usually go from prior year to current year and look and see how many kids, what was the percentage of children that made gain. But in elementary school, it was very different this year because we have to look, and in high school and middle school, we had to look at prior year. So you're going from 2019 to 2021. So what's the impact of that? The impact is that you lowered the cell size. So in certain of our schools, we had very small, relatively half of our kids in elementary to look at learning gain because you were going from 5th grade to 3rd grade. There was no other way to do it. So that did have a big impact, and it's not really revealed. And when you see these things in and other people talk about them or publish them, they don't go into those details. But that's a big one. We have to keep that in mind. So this slide depicts a comparison of school year 18-19 to school year 2021. District grade accounts for proficiency in the areas of ELA and math, proficiency science and social studies, grad rate for high school, and acceleration in middle school and high school. Our district results indicate that we lost a total of 4 percentage points. However, the big thing to keep in mind is we held our A. That is a huge accomplishment given what we faced in the last couple of years. We had an increase in points for middle school and high school acceleration and grad rate, and we lost some points in English language arts, but I think our biggest area of concern was mathematics. So if you look at the big picture overall. Okay.
Terrible. I see that we increased the graduation rate, and I'm sure that there were changes that allowed more to graduate without some of the restrictions. That is something that I want to dive into, not today, but at a future date, because, you know, Sarasota has a higher graduation rate than the state, not a graduation rate, graduation requirements than the state. And the state already has the highest graduation rate requirements of other states. So I would like to dig into that a little more and maybe even have, town hall meetings on graduation rates, what our requirements are, and maybe we ought to look at those, just to bring that up for another discussion, not today.
Okay. So as you just mentioned, often when we look at data, especially when we get the school grade, is we look.
I'm sorry, Jane had something to mention
sorry,
on that
Jane.
page too.
This is for a future as well, Denise. I've been out talking with schools, and I know that we're having a churn of students in schools. So we're looking at a particular cohort in, let's say, pre-K, and 3 years later, a lot of those students are no longer there. Mm-hmm. I want to know, are they in our school district and other schools? And I want to know how many students are coming into our schools that are impacting our testing and where they're coming from. So I think we really need to look now at not only what's in our district, but where our district is, where those new students are coming from, how that impacts our scores and learning, and also where those students are that leave, because we had a fairly large cohort and we ended up with a much smaller cohort 3 years later, and we really aren't sure where they are. I know there are ways to find that out. That's just one program that would be relevant, but I think we need to look at more analytics now. I always call your department analytics, because I think it really is. But we really need to look at those issues, I think, and how they're impacting who our students are. I know our schools have grown this year, and that's great, but, how and why and where.
Okay, we'll definitely look into that. I know we've done we've looked at things with mobility in the past, and we know pre-pandemic that it does have a negative impact, as it states in the literature everywhere. But I think this year, more than any year, we've seen all kinds of mobility in and out from homeschool and back and so forth. Okay, so here, talking on this slide, we're talking about comparing Sarasota to the state data. We frequently do this. And you can see, I think it's important to note that in all of our core areas, based on the grade, we scored higher than the state, and in some instances, quite a bit higher than the state. If you look at our mathematics scores across the grades 3 to 8, you can see that we were 10 to 29 percentage points higher than the state, and all the other areas as well. So I think that even though you see some decreases when compared to a reference point, which is really the only reference point we have, is that we're scoring quite well, and that the state also had declines. If you look at this slide, we wanted to look at learning gain a little bit. And what's important to us is to look at the student groups. These are the student groups that are taken and looked at separately in ESSA. So we look at our total scores, which we've been talking about, our white, black, Hispanic, those on free and reduced lunch, English language learners, and students with disabilities. So for all student groups, scored higher than the state in both English language arts and mathematics. For all student groups, the percentage making learning gain was higher in ELA than mathematics, except for our students with disabilities, where they performed slightly better in math than in English. Big picture, broad strokes. And this is learning gain. This is not proficiency. Our most challenging metric here, our most challenging students in this particular has been consistent over the last several years, and that's students with disabilities and our African American students. Partially, in part, smaller cell size too in those areas when you're looking at percents. So this slide is a little busy, so let me kind of walk you through it. This is our first attempt this year to do our benchmarking. So it was iReady. It was taking in middle school between August 16th and September 3rd, and elementary between the 16th and the 31st. And it's our first glimpse at how are our students now returning to school in a somewhat quote-unquote normal year and performing. So the one indicator that we look at first and foremost is iReady in both reading and mathematics. This chart includes data for elementary and middle school students on reading iReady administered very early this fall. I can actually say late summer. So it can be considered our first reference point. Although this view is limited, we will know more at mid-year when we can view growth. This data is useful if referenced to past data taking at relatively the same time. I want to say before I start going a little deeper that in the fall, we have students just returning, and these students are not expected to be mid-grade level or even at grade level. We know that they're coming in, a lot of them a little behind. So even though you see numbers that are saying 1 year behind, we just know that they're below, but that's not uncommon. And so when you look across years, starting with elementary school, you can see that there's 4 bars, and they are representing school year 1920 pre-pandemic, 2021, and that was broken into 2 groups deliberately, those that tested in school and reported they tested in school, and those that did not. And that was because we know that at home we don't have a standardized environment. So we don't know, we know the child, and hopefully child's taking the test, being monitored, but you really don't have control over that environment. And then our 21-22 data. And in the legend, you can see the percent at the very top in blue indicates those children that are already coming back to school, they're at mid or above level. They are our highest performing kids. The percent in brown block indicates students who are early on grade level. They're already coming in and they're on the grade level. The larger group are those that I just said that are in the middle. And then we have the gray and the red that are more than a year behind. So that's our groups of concern. For elementary school and middle school, the interesting point here is the stability of the scores between 1920 and 2021. That's a favorable sign because we're performed this year, even after all of the challenges we were discussing, similarly to before in school year 1920. So I was happy to see that stability. For middle school students, the data indicates almost 50% of the students are on level. The distribution is a little bit different in elementary. When compared to elementary, we have more of a bimodal distribution there, where you can see that the lower levels, those behind 2 or more years, is a little bit larger. And again, very, very similar to how we performed in 1920. One more. So same kind of data in mathematics. We're looking at our current students and how they perform very early on. This chart includes data for both elementary and middle on math, iReady, administered late summer. Again, you see both elementary and middle school charts have the same 4 bars comparing 1920 to 2021, students testing in school and those tested out of school, and then 21-22 data. And you can see in the legend where the colors correspond. Again, we see for elementary students and middle school the stability of the scores compared to 1920. In 2021 and in 21-22, the elementary students had the largest percentage of students fall one grade below, which would correspond with what we thought saw in mathematics on the FSA. Across the years, elementary has less than 14% of students 2 or more years below.
Bridget has a comment.
Just really quickly, and I know Mr. Renoff mentioned this too, as far as diving in a little bit, but I did notice when you go from the iReady preliminary elementary to middle, and so naturally I wanted, because we're not peeling back it by actual grade,
Right.
but looking what that transition looks like at 4th and 5th grade to see is that tier, or is that reflective when we're drilling down at the grade level. And again, for the sake of time, I recognize, but if you could highlight that, is that something is addressed or reviewed?
That is something we do review, and we do have that data, and we can go further into it. And it'll be interesting to see at mid-year. Thank you. So again, we see that, I don't know if I said this already. Again, we see for elementary school and middle school the stability of the scores as we go across the years. And then, I did say this already. Across the years, elementary is less than 14% of the students, 2 more years below grade level. For middle school, we see that bimodal distribution. You're seeing the same thing that you saw in reading. But approximately 42% of the students were at or above level returning to school, 31% about 1 grade below. And that's really what we can see at this point. At mid-year, we'll be able to see and break it down by grade level of where of our students performing over time, because this is the critical piece right before, well, a couple months before they take their final tests. With that, I'll turn it over to Brandon and Steve, and they're going to go a little deeper into things and the more important stuff about what are we doing with the data.
And I do believe that some of what they're going to be sharing with all of you may answer some of the questions that may be starting to, you start thinking about or want to ask the team, but they may be answering some of that in their presentation. So.
Can you hear me? Good morning. No, I think mine's it.
Testing. Up, there we go. Just have to hit it a few times. I'm watching you all know that. So good morning, everybody. Thanks for having us today. Certainly, Chris, Mr. Renoff, thank you for sharing that information. It is interesting when you go back and you look at the last couple of years. It's been an incredibly challenging couple of years for our school district. It's been an incredibly challenging couple of years for our community. And so it's interesting when you look back at how our school district responds. And, in any situation in past history here in Sarasota County, it seems like the school district in really difficult times, we step up and we find ways to be successful. So certainly some of the data is concerning, and some of it we can celebrate. But at the end of the day, I think we can be incredibly proud of the folks that are sitting in the back of the room and who you're representing, the principals, as well as our teachers and our instructional support out there. So I want to start off with that. So Brandon, Dr. Johnson and I'll be sharing some information today that takes us back a little bit, but also will kind of take us into where we are now and where we're going to be looking at the future. The opportunity today, we're going to highlight these 4 broad areas that are response to the data. Supports for students to help with learning recovery, or supports for students to look at unfinished learning. School improvement planning process, progress monitoring, and multi-tiered systems of support, and the collaborative efforts to support our students or collective efficacy. Dr. Johnson, I'll be sharing back and forth throughout our portion of the presentation, and at the end, if you have questions for us, that would be great. So on this slide, we want to talk about where we started at the end of last year, 2 years ago, and even into last year, where we knew we needed additional support for our students in the summer. At secondary level, when I address secondary level, we're always looking at how did the students perform in the classroom? How did we do as far as credits lost? How did we do as far as courses lost in middle school? And, at the end of the day, it was about a 3% drop. That's, to me, is a huge win for us. We were looking at what we thought would be huge failures just based on the challenges that we were seeing with the students and the folks in the classroom. So what we did in response to that, we expanded our summer school offerings to make sure our students had the opportunity to make up courses. We expanded our offerings to make sure students had the opportunity to make up credits. We expanded into English, Math, Social Studies, and Science. We offered North County and South County summer programmings. In middle school, again, that was related to course recovery, so students could stay on track with their 12 core content classes to get them to high school. And in high schools, it was credit recovery to keep them on track for graduation, to make sure they can meet those graduation requirements. Again, we saw a 3% increase in the number of failures. We anticipated a much higher number than that, but we were able to offset a lot of those failures in the summer, as well as our credit retrieval programs during the school year, which we have a pretty solid process for that. When you think about summer programming, we also had to think about students who were going through this where they were behind in their learning, and when we had to help them make up that learning. So summer programming in past years was all about credit and course recovery. This time we had to also think about when we were bringing students in, make it more personalized around their opportunities to pick up on that learning that was unfinished from the previous year. We don't like to call it learning loss because many times they didn't even have an opportunity to learn it. So really didn't lose it. It was unfinished in our eyes. And I think that's a much more positive way of phrasing it, as well as our opportunity to catch them up. The other thing we did that we're going to expand and continue to build on, we increased our every school had a transition program from 5th to 6th grade and a transition program from 8th to 9th grade. And we haven't done that at all schools in the past. Certainly is a best practice that we want to continue. So schools designed those programs, and they identified groups of students to bring in during the summer to acclimate them in their transition into the next level. Fortunately, we were able to use some additional funding through ESSER funds and what we call Jumpstart funding to support those types of programs. And so, Brandon, summer supports for elementary.
So I know you guys can you guys hear me clearly? I know Jamal told me to get really close. So for us, I think to be very fair, we all are aware that the summer was condensed. And so when we sat down as a group and looked at elementary, middle, and high, the first thing we focused on in elementary were the students in 3rd grade who were not proficient, who did not pass the assessment. And so as we looked at our numbers and also looked at the staffing model, which was we needed teachers to be there, we started with 3rd grade. And then in addition, working with Sonia, we started with also students with disabilities. So those are really the two criteria that we focused on. After we were able to staff those two programs, we actually added 2nd grade to numerous schools. We wanted to drop down even lower to 1st grade, but unfortunately, just due to staffing and the amount of teachers that we had to focus specifically on 3rd grade, 2nd grade, and our students with disabilities. In addition, I think Mr. Kentish just mentioned it, we had a conversation about 5th grade students transitioning to middle school, and so we did work together with the transition program to ensure that 5th graders moving on also knew what it looked like in middle school, because you remember prior year, they actually hadn't been on campus. They never had that opportunity, some of them, because of concurrent teaching. So for our summer programming model, unfortunately, last year we did have to take quite a few things away. The positive I can tell you as we look forward is they get to come back, because we will have our full summer again. We are no longer concurrent teaching. And so, and hopefully the big piece for me will be that we've closed some of these gaps. And you'll hear some of the elementary schools mention what they're actually doing based on the data. But our hope, of course, is that we will have less students that actually have these large gaps that we've seen in the past. And so for me, I'll transition into Jumpstart funds to support unfinished learning. So Jumpstart funds, you guys are well aware of the additional funding that Sarasota County received. And the reason for that was we are aware, just looking at not only iReady data, but FSA data, we have huge gaps. Let's just be very fair. If you think about even in our elementary schools, yes, I'm incredibly happy that we stayed in A, but the reality is if you look at the data, we did drop in each category. It's that for acceleration and graduation. And so once we sat down and had a discussion, the big piece was we were going to implement Jumpstart. And what is Jumpstart? It's essentially funding for every single school in Sarasota County. So we're able to give them funding in a range of $30,000 to $100,000 for them to make a decision based on their own data, individual schools, of what resources they need to put in place. And Wilkinson and Garden will be a little bit more specific, but I want to give you just a general broad overview of from transportation. So they were able to fund transportation for free after-school tutoring programs. They were able to do contract services for teachers to be brought in to work with students who were quarantined that were coming back, also students who were quarantined that were at home. And then last but certainly not least, interventions throughout the day as well. So contract services they could do CPTs and PLCs as well. So those half-day plannings that teachers needed or full-day plannings, they also had funding for that as well. And so when you think of the amount of resources that they had, at least in this particular time, thinking about what we had last year, our expectation as we all reviewed it, as well as Tara, was that they were implementing these strategies. And we'll get into exactly how we monitor it, because that's part of our job to make sure that it actually is taking place. But a lot of our schools, every single one, actually did this. They actually had the Jumpstart funds to actually be able to implement and make sure we can close those gaps for quite a few of our students. Let's be very fair, especially our ESSA groups. I think you heard Dr. Canalupo mention it earlier, students with disabilities, as well as our African-American students. So kind of going down to one more, supporting students in quarantine. I think all of us are well aware that the first 6 weeks were a little challenging when it came to students being quarantined. Remember, we went over the numbers quite a bit. Of course, in middle and high school, they had access to online resources. In elementary, we had the personalized learning packets. But to be very fair, that's not enough, correct? We kind of know that. If they go home and they're working on these documents, we truly appreciate it. But there had to be something in place when they came back. And so when you combine Jumpstart funds with the extra duty days and contract services, along with our fabulous teachers, that is how we were catching students up in elementary, middle, and high, which was bringing them back in, looking at what they actually completed or they did not complete, and then making sure we were servicing those students either during intervention times, after school, before school, whatever time we had to be able to make sure that we're closing those gaps. We even had schools, guys, who did Saturday school. And so any and everything they could think of to make sure we were meeting the needs of those students who were quarantined is what we were doing. Positive looking forward, of course, if you look at our numbers recently, they've been able to truly focus on those students even more because they're in school. So we still have that data. We still know who those students are. Remember, we kept track of that the whole time. So even though we were supporting them when they came back, we are still supporting them to this day. And I'll be honest, the mid-year review data will tell us a lot. If all the different things that we have done and supports we provided, are we seeing growth specifically, not just with every student, of course we want that, but also students who are quarantined sometimes 1, 2, and unfortunately some of them 3 times. And we know the numbers that we had to sit them out during those times. Steve, anything you wanted to add for middle and high with support for students in quarantine, sir?
I think the Jumpstart funding, that's one of those areas where it's very similar to elementary, middle, and high school. You know, essentially you're trying to find opportunities, extra time for students after school, before school. But in secondary, quite frequently, you want to try to capture them during school. So we're seeing some creative ways of pulling students out of some of those elective courses and supporting them through teachers that are working on their planning period. It's just it's anything and everything we can do to support our kids in this environment. And then I think with quarantine, you know, I've heard many teachers say, and we always, when we were visiting classrooms, asked them about this. And the question was, you know, how's this challenge with kids that are coming and going? And it was a constant flow of students. It was just incredibly challenging. And many of them said it was more difficult than it was last year doing concurrent teaching because those students, you know, you didn't know who was going to be there the next day and trying to keep up with it on the attendance. So, again, that's a big shout out to the schools and the teachers. But for the time being, we seem to be on a better place and a better end of that. So, you know, doing our best. I think Dr. Johnson said it exactly right. You know, the data is going to tell us our efforts being successful. You know, are we getting enough interventions in place? And we'll just continue to work on that throughout the year.
So for our actual school improvement plan, I know most of you are, of course, well aware of our school improvement plan. The big piece, if you look at kind of just the graphic that I want you to take a look at, they are all, of course, kind of combined. So if you think of the IPI-DIPI, which is the result of what teachers actually complete right, their goals for that particular year. The strategic plan, Dr. Asplin, as well as Sarasota County Schools, what we are creating to make sure that we're all aligned and we have a vision and mission moving in the same direction. The ESSA learning gains in lower quartile we'll definitely touch upon in a minute, but the bottom line with that is that they have any numbers under 40% in their ESSA groups or learning quartile and learning gains that they did not show growth, it should be in their strategic plan, their school improvement plan. There are no excuses for that. And then, of course, the deliberate practice is what our administrators actually, that is their personalized goals and what they expect to achieve within their own school. And so looking at all of those and kind of our expectations, Mr. Cantis and I, really our first goal, just so you guys are aware, is to first get out to schools for that initial kind of review. Sitting down with principals, really looking at their data from last year and having a discussion really from their lens, what do they see as a result of these numbers? Because I know what I see. I go home, look at it, especially being new in this role. That to me is like job number one, right? I should know their data to be fair as well as they do. And so for me, it's going out. I know Mr. Cantis does the same thing, hoping that some of the answers they provide are based on the data they see, and then what are the next steps? What I need you to truly understand is I say this every single time, which is, what are your next steps? We can have a discussion about data like Dr. Canalupo had, but the reality is, what are you doing with it? If you are just looking at it and doing nothing, then we get no results. And so within the deliberate practice, as well as their school improvement plan, my expectation is that they have actual goals of those next steps. If you go down kind of to the next level, then the discussion becomes that ongoing discussion and classroom walkthroughs. Steve and I multiple times have visited every single school, and every time I go, it's the same discussion. All right, what are your students who are struggling? What are you doing about it? What are you doing about your math scores? Because you guys saw it the last screen. What are we doing to make sure we have the impact in math? And last but not least, how is benchmark advance going within ELA? What are we doing with that new curriculum? And how is it making sure that students are meeting the standards that they need to meet? The ongoing discussion, the classroom walkthroughs are a huge part of us knowing what's going on every campus all day. I'll be heading to Go Show later on today, as a matter of fact, just to get out. The next piece for us actually they're actually coming up next week, which is our monthly, really quarterly check-in for Fidelity Check. And a Fidelity Check for us, pretty simple, but at the same time complex. Principals, as well as their team, will receive 4 questions, really focused on not only data, progress monitoring, but then what are the next steps. Dr. Asplin and myself will be visiting elementary schools. Mr. Renoff and Mr. Cantis are visiting middle and high schools. And it's an opportunity for us to really dig in a little bit deeper based on all the discussions that you're hearing today. So now that we know students are back in place, we're no longer hopefully quarantining, you know your data. What is it now that you're doing with your actual teachers, professional development, PLCs, what's actually going on in your campus? And the big piece for us is if they can speak to it and then also show us, then we know that it's happening. So that when we come back mid-year to have a discussion with the board, we can also share some of that information. And as Dr. Asplin alluded earlier, not have to bring 50-something principals up here.
Brandon, what is IPDP?
So IPDP, Individualized Professional Development Plan.
Thank you, professional
course.
development. Karen?
Thank you, Madam Chair. 2 questions. After the next iReady progress monitoring and that data comes in, you're referencing Jumpstart funds, whatever name you want to give them. Will the same amount of funds be available post that next set of data that goes to these individual schools for them to implement unfinished learning and the like?
So I would say, my first response to that is I think what I've told principals is, we had a principal meeting yesterday, that we have not turned away any request for funding. I think the funding's there. I think the answer is going to be absolutely yes. But I think, Ms. Rose, one of the things that we tried to do at the beginning was identify those funding for the entire year. And so, but it can be reallocated. So, for example, if we find at the mid-year we really have an issue over here, where at the beginning we had an issue over here, we can reallocate those funds to there. So I'm going to say right now, Mitzi's not here, so I'm going to say yes, that we will have those funds. But I think that's a fair statement. I think we'll be in a good place. Yeah.
And remember too, none of our ESSER 3 money has even come in yet, and so we have another large bucket that's going to be coming in soon, I hope, as well. But when we plan for this, we plan for the whole year and making sure with what we have that we can cover that. And so I think we're going to be in good shape just based on that.
That's the assurance I was looking for. And then secondly, when we look at the amount of vacancies that the board has been getting numbers on,
We've gone from 60 to 50 to the last data set I got was 40 instructional. And if that is, if those vacancies are in math, which is the area that we want to do some acceleration, of course, reading, or in exceptional student education, special education, how are we handling that? What's the impact? And is there a strategy that's more immediate than waiting for a contract settlement?
I have Dr. Foster coming up as well to address all of that. Thank you. Either one.
Good morning. Is it on? All right. So yeah, thank you for the question. I know we spoke briefly last week about it. Our district has been working really hard on the HR situation. Dr. Asplin, Cabinet, they've been very supportive in getting our HR department and principals involved in different organizations, both locally and nationally. We had a group yesterday where we've connected with Betsy Ahrens, who runs the Urban Schools Human Capital Academy. It's based out of Virginia. It's a great national organization that really focuses on human capital in the school districts. So we were on yesterday. We had 10 people as part of our team just really addressing this concern. Lots of big districts. We had Miami-Dade on there, Palm Beach, Duval County from Florida, LA Public Schools. We had a school district from New Orleans. So lots of different school districts on there really discussing what they're now calling the great, basically the great resignation of that we're facing in our school district, and, you know, basically even beyond the school district. So our recruitment team is actively out there. They're at Garden this morning. So looking at both things, we're looking at trying to fill classified positions and then as well as instructional positions. So connecting with all the universities as far as trying to get people as quickly as possible into positions. We've worked with universities regarding interns that are currently in their internship and will be finishing this month to say, can we do binders? Can we get them signed up so that they can quickly transition into the full-time position? So just coming up with lots of, different ways of connecting. We've also contracted the services of John Reichert. So he's going to be working closely with our HR department and really connecting us with different resources to get these positions filled.
Given that it's my understanding that we haven't settled the contract with the teacher classified representatives, the union, is there any consideration for a memorandum of understanding to get those critical area teachers, particularly special education teachers, in? Because no matter, your presentation was beyond exemplary. I can't see one piece that you haven't covered. These schools aren't going to be able to go anywhere if they don't have an instructor that is trained in specific areas like special education, like math. That's critical. And I know we've done that in the past, and we're about to hit the point of a critical point in that we have time to make gains. I'm very concerned, and what is our strategy to make sure we're in a place to support these schools before we get to January?
And I can say, I think the connection with the Urban Schools Human Capital Academy is key to that, because the whole program is designed on human resources, and staffing the schools increases student achievement more than anything. It's the teacher that's in front of the students, and making sure we have the right person and putting all efforts into that. All of this is into our strategic goal. So as we go more and more into the strategic goal and discuss funding different resources with that, there are some other strategies as we move forward and how we can make sure all our schools are staffed. Many school districts look at different things as far as potentially even hiring extra people that kind of become a sub pool that are there ready to go ready to be deployed as soon as the school year starts. If someone leaves, you have somebody waiting in the wings. They can serve in a sub capacity, but the minute someone's out, then they're immediately replaced. So we have a lot of things like that that we're looking into, and in the process of kind of creating that as we're going. Right now, today, we're sitting with 48 instructional vacancies. I've connected with the principals with those vacancies to say, what does it actually look like at your school? So, for example, we had some vacancies that were created where they were added after the 5-day count, but what the principal has waited to do was to actually take those students out of the classroom. So we might have what looks like a vacancy. The students are still sitting with their classroom. They may be sitting with 20 students rather than 18 students, which is not ideal, but at least they're sitting in a classroom with a qualified, certified teacher that is able to continue to instruct them and move them forward.
Dr. Brennan and Dr. Asplin, could we perhaps put something about the employees and that status in our next workshop so that, we can discuss it further and we can get on with because I know each group has a half hour here.
Yes, we can certainly do that. I know there's a lot of other questions around that as well, just in the summer, what we do.
Yeah, we could take
we
a
would
half
like to
an
go
hour
through
for
that
this.
just so everybody understands that in a workshop would be great. And then where we go from here and how are we going to make it happen the rest of the year? Yes.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So, Chris, could you take us back 2 slides, please? Yeah, I just wanted to, we didn't mention the additional mental health supports. I think it's really important. I'm just going to brush over it real quickly, but it's important that we know, I just meeting with the principals yesterday, we had a block of time where we discussed the challenges our students, what we're seeing with the challenges our students in the classroom this year. And there's some behaviors that are very different, and it would have to be expected. Some of our kids haven't been in school in a year and a half, 2 years, and if you take the summer into account. So one of the things that we purposely did, we made sure that we had a dedicated mental health counselor. This is through your all support, but also through some of the extra funding. We had additional mental health counselor at secondaries, all secondary schools, middle and high school. Teachers we purchased Suite 360, which is a program which allows us to provide a monthly session of support for students in mental health awareness. This is required training from the state, 5 hours required training from the state for the year. PBIS in every school, we've really ramped that up over the last couple of years. We're getting better and better and better with our PBIS programs. All of our schools have been trained now, and all of our schools have quality programs, and they're getting better by the day. And that'll be an important support for our students. And not to mention, you're aware of the crisis text line. It gets a ton of hits in our district, as would any district. We're fortunate that our foundation, Bransick Foundation, is supportive of that initiative, and it really is used. I mean, it's something that's used, and it gets supports to our kids. So I wanted to make sure we mention those mental health supports, because that's a big chunk of what schools are dealing with right now. These principals will tell you it's something that they're working really hard with to make sure our students are in a good place. Okay, on the progress monitoring, MTSS, you've heard a lot about progress monitoring, how we are progress monitoring. I think it's kind of exciting that we've been able to present all of those ways that we're doing it. It looks different at elementary than it does at high school. Middle school is very similar to elementary, but there's some nuances there too. So I'm not going to go through all of the ways we progress monitor. I have it here if you're all okay with that. I think we've gone through that in the past, and I don't think we need to do that. But just know that any tested area, any area that a student is going to be assessed on, we do regular progress monitoring. And again, I think it's an area that we have gotten better and better and better at. And where we get better is, as Dr. John said, it's not just the data, it's what do you do with the data. So I also wanted to just reiterate that with graduation, the challenges from the pandemic with graduation are very real, a lot of different challenges that we're seeing. And so again, when we talk about dedicating time, money, resources, that's what we're trying to do to commit to those seniors, getting them, you got to mitigate some of those pieces. And one of those is we got to get a diploma in a student's hand and make sure they're, that when they walk across that stage, they're ready. It's more difficult now than it ever has been, but I think we're creative in our approach. Our Project 10, we know every kid who has not met that target, and we are doing personalized opportunities for testing, personalized opportunities for extra supports, that whatever they need to get them graduated. And so I just want to recognize we have a team, Dr. Clayton, she's amazing with that, and her team out of the district office works really hard with our schools on that. Principals do a great job with that. Just a couple things with training, with the training piece on this. The best standards is way up on our list. And so right now, as we try to figure out ways from K-12 to train our teachers, it's harder now because we don't have the number of subs we need. It's hard to pull teachers out of the classroom right now because they want every minute with every student they can to get them caught up. But we are doing some training. We're starting to hit our stride with that. A lot of conversations, we put things off, put it off. But now we're starting to put our plans in place to make sure our teachers are trained in the best standards as a new assessment comes into play next year. Curriculum teams, I've said this before, but I want to recognize our curriculum directors are here. They've been unbelievably flexible and supportive of whatever we've asked them to do. We have curriculum staff, unfortunately, sometimes in classrooms where we might have we need an extra support for a day, a week, or whatever. They've been willing to do that. We are working with teachers. We have a ton of new teachers. They need additional supports. We're providing them those supports. We've gone away from that traditional heavy-hitting, this is our visible learning training moving forward. It's more directed towards each and every teacher, any support that they need. And I think the principals would tell you that the curriculum departments have been amazingly supportive. We also have added instructional facilitators at elementary and middle and high school, more on the model of a reading coach. We've dedicated those at secondary to a couple of schools that need that extra support because we know they're going to be more challenged. Some of our middle schools are not Title I schools, but they have those characteristics of a Title I school. Just their data's not quite hitting the mark for that. Finally, on the multi-tiered systems of support, every school, this has been a challenge, quite honestly, for schools over time. We are, again, it's a model that we have in place. We're doing the expectation through the strategic plan and that alignment with our IPI-DIPIs and our school improvement plans and our deliberate practice strategic plan, that clear alignment now, part of that is the MTSS process, that we are identifying students through a problem-solving process who need extra support. And then the whole idea with MTSS is you find out how you can help and assist every student. Sometimes those numbers are rather large. If you get into a high school with 2,500 kids, that's a lot of kids that need additional support. So finding ways to manage that process. Again, it's way up on our list as an area of improvement, and it's going to be part of the strategic plan, and training will be provided for that. So that's kind of the quick overview of the multi-tiered systems of support. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer those. Brandon, do you have anything to add?
I'm only laughing because that wasn't quick. I love you, Steve.
It wasn't quick.
I just teasing. Can you go to the next slide for me,
like
Mr. Radolph? No, great job, sir. So for collective efficacy, for us, we really do want you to understand that within our principal meetings and our cluster meetings from elementary, middle, and high, we discuss all of this. What are problem-solving things? What's going on in your campus? What's working well over here? So that they can have that discussion and, of course, take it back to their schools. As a part of that piece, when they go back to their school, we keep asking, right, what's next? Well, it's the teacher collaborative planning, working with your teachers on PLCs, being in there to actually have that same discussion so that they can make decisions all together. In silos, we all know this, it does not work. Hence why we always discuss and we have discussions about what's working on campuses. And of course, our program specialists and curriculum directors are a huge part of that same exact piece that we expect from principals and teachers on campus, which is discussions about how we move students forward. As a part of that process, of course, you see from feedback opportunities, meaning I love it, we're going to be in person actually for our next principal meeting to discuss the strategic plan, which gives them that opportunity to actually sit and actually discuss and to not necessarily be in silos on Zoom again. And there's a little couple of pieces that you guys are probably already aware. We have literacy teams elementary, we have department chair teams, we have team leaders. So we have leadership teams on every campus to have those discussions so that they can then branch out and have that within their grade level or departments as well. And then, of course, scheduling committee, which takes place at middle and high. I say this from coming from high school the last 5 years, incredibly important. it is how we meet the needs of kids, especially within those levels. When we see gaps, and I think Mrs. Rose talked about it earlier, about being strategic when you're doing scheduling to meet the needs of each individual student. Just know that does take place not only with a master scheduler, but as well as our APC at the high school level. And so for our last slide, kind of two initiatives that we have right now. The Reading Scholarship Step Up for Students for Reading Scholarship, which is that I know you guys are aware from past, I see Mrs. Brown smiling, from the past, which is $500 that they're able to use for tutoring or support. And so what we actually do, which is positive for us, with our Jumpstart funds, those students already have access to that in our schools for free. So that's first and foremost. This is in addition. So for those students who earn it, Mrs. Brown, this is in addition to that, and we give them also the places they can go and actually use that scholarship as well, working through our counselors at each school. So those those families are not left not knowing what to do or where to go as it pertains to that, and as well as the follow-up as well. The second piece is our New World Reading Initiative, which is the piece where starting December, all students K through 5 will receive books. Free books as well. And so and I apologize actually based on the levels of students who are not performing, but the New World Reading Initiative, we actually have flyers that are going out to every single school. Most have put them on their own letterhead, so it doesn't look like junk mail. And so they actually do sign up, and those are delivered right to their home. We do not do that process. Katie Kephart, who is the lead from our district running that, it actually gets delivered right to those students' homes as soon as they sign up, and we are walking them through that as well if they need assistance so that we don't leave anyone out. The second piece of that is being able to double check the students who have not signed up. So if they're not signed up, we are actually following up with those families as well. I just had my cluster meetings with the Mid, North, and South to have that same discussion. My expectation is that you're following up with the families as well.
Are you also following up with the families to be sure that they've all applied and received that $500?
Yes, we are as well. So that's why we're working through the counselors as well, just to make sure we keep track of that.
And we're giving them suggestions on what they can do?
Yes, ma'am.
For those, great.
So when you go online, there's actually a drop down that shows all the different organizations that you can take your $500 to and actually participate for that tutoring. So they're not having to search on their own.
And that is for every student at level 1 and 2 in grades 3 through 5.
Yes, ma'am.
Can have additional help in reading.
Yes, ma'am. In addition to what we are also providing in Sarasota
Great.
County.
Can I add one other thing? I just, before we bring the principals in, I just want to again say that, we are working really hard as the people in this room as well as in this district, but the people in the school are giving it everything they've got every day. And I think it's important that, we don't forget, we're still in a pandemic. It hasn't, it's better perhaps than it was, but it's still challenging in many ways. And I think we need to recognize that. And I think the most important thing is to recognize the hard work that our teachers, what we're asking of them, and our support staff. You're exactly right, Ms. Rose, you're exactly right. When we have a teacher who's not in a position, we have to find ways, and they're getting creative in how they do that. We're using teacher planning periods. We're doing other things, but I'm proud of the work that the people I work with, these folks, as well as the teachers. It's been pretty amazing to watch, but I think it's important that we understand the quarantining, the vacancies, those things are, they're just little hits on the work that we're doing, but I think we are incredibly creative in the way we're overcoming those. So I'm really proud to be part of this district and proud to work with these folks.
And I just wanted to go ahead and let you know that we will be transitioning to inviting our first set of principals up, Ms. Archer from Garden and Ms. Nations from Wilkinson. If you have any questions, the only other thing that I did want to say, just to echo what Dr. Johnson and Mr. Kanzi said, is it really is about interdependence. It isn't the schools working in isolation. It's not the teachers working in isolation. It's not the district, kind of top-down management to our schools, and of course, our families. We can't do any of this without working directly with our families and supporting our families. So really, it is that interdependence. And I can tell you right now, I'm going to say kudos to all of you, but Dr. Aspen as well, the strategic plan, this is an opportunity for it all to kind of coalesce together. And it's really about doing less and doing it really, really well. So thank you for the opportunity. Ladies?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Edwards.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before we get started with the principals, I just want to talk about what I heard before we go into that direction. I really appreciate that we turned a channel to talk about instruction and academics and data and where we're going from here. I thank all of you and wholeheartedly thank what I heard about how the staff and how hard the teachers are working and everybody pushing in that. So I just want to reiterate how grateful I am as a school board member and appreciate all the hard work that you guys have been doing. So I just wanted to touch on that. A couple of things that I would like to just talk about quickly. I hear, which is always a concern of mine, from the first few times that I've met with Dr. Asplin, that we talk about capacity on everyone's plate. I mean, how much everyone is literally doing and the pace at which we're doing it. And so far, since I've been a board member, I haven't seen anyone take a breath, get a respite. And it seems like more and more and more and more keep getting added to that on top of the lack of professionals and recruitment and where are those professionals. So I'm greatly concerned about that. And I have started to initiate conversations with Dr. Asplin about perhaps looking at re-engineering teaching jobs and other jobs so that it becomes an easier job to recruit for and to take the same dollars that we use in support staff and instruction and see how we can redeploy those dollars and make the jobs better. So stay tuned for some of those conversations. I'd like to Mrs. Brown's point, quickly talk about graduation rates, which I think are awesome, and that's a great benchmark. I'd like to see that shift a little to outcomes. I'd like to see, instead of graduation rates, what are the outcomes of those graduations? How many are enrolled? How many are enlisted? And how many are employed? Because that really changes the dial big time. And again, I'm just throwing a bunch of this stuff out. I'm going to throw out one thing I've not discussed with anybody. I don't mean for it to be a surprise, but we're always in reactive mode. I'm a little concerned that we don't have the same kind of attention from Mr. Kentese and Brandon Johnson, Dr. Johnson, for just middle schools. I think from an administrative point of view, we need to refocus into that because that's going to matter how we get to high schools. And no offense, Steve, I just see that there's so much. I know what Steve does. I've had several conversations about things that he's involved with all the time that is not instructional, that is not proactive, that is reactive, and hoping that we can address some of those issues. And with that, I will be quiet. Those are just my quick notes.
And I want to assure Dr. Asplin and all of our staff, I know you've all kind of have a half-hour time block for each of you. If we run over because we have been talking, I have every intention to extend the meeting for the time that we've been talking and interrupting you. So we want to hear everything you have to say.
Well, that's awesome. And again, I will turn it over to these ladies. And for all of our principals, yes, I know I told you had 10 minutes. So don't think it's been extended that far. So again, looking forward to what you have to share. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much. I'm Amy Archer, the proud principal of Garden Elementary School. Thank you so much for this opportunity to be here. I am going to wait for the PowerPoint to pop up, and then I will share a little bit about the amazing school community that I have the privilege of leading. You can often hear us saying at Garden Elementary that it is great to be a Garden Gator, and I believe that with all of my heart. We've talked a lot about the dedication of staff, and that is something that is alive and well at Garden Elementary. We have an amazing staff. We have an incredible student population. We have supportive parents and a very compassionate community. I've listed several other items that we're very proud of at Garden Elementary School. We are a PBIS school of distinction. Our special area teachers, we have art, music, science, PE, and SEL that we offer on a rotation to our students. The ripple effect of our reading recovery and literacy lesson programs is without measure. The impact that those two programs bring to our school community is making a significant difference across the entire campus. In 2018-19, our two ESSA subgroups that did not meet the mark were ELL and our Hispanic population, and therefore we have received a waiver unit of an ESOL interventionist so that we can provide intentional instruction and intervention to our ESOL population. Behavior specialists have a very positive impact on our school community. We are an EBD program school at Garden Elementary School. We have tapped into some teacher leaders and created a progress monitoring team to support our efforts with monitoring the growth and acceleration for all of our students. Jumpstart funding, what a blessing that has been to us. I'll talk a little bit more about how we're utilizing those funds later. We have our Kindness Rock Garden, because kindness is part of our core value at Garden Elementary School. Relationships are critical at Garden. And our literacy projects and initiatives, we have a book vending machine, which is linked to our PBIS. We're actually doing drawings this week. If students are exhibiting appropriate behaviors, they are entered into a drawing, and one student from every classroom is selected to go to the book vending machine, and they really, really love that. We have a free little library on our campus where students can trade or take a book so that they can increase their home libraries. And then we also had our re-grand opening since COVID of our student bookstore, where we have reduced price books that are very high interest, hardback, softback, that students can purchase at our school every Friday. And so the joy that I experienced last Friday watching students with ginormous smiles with bags of books and how excited they were to be able to purchase those for a very small fee really started my Friday off in a very positive manner. Last night at our SAC meeting, I asked our school community. So I explained to them that I had the opportunity to come to the board today. And I said, without a doubt, you know, it's always a pleasure to talk about our school community, but I wanted to make sure that I represented our school community well. And so I passed out little stickies and I asked them, you know, why are you proud to be a Garden Gator? We had families, community members, our staff. We also had a joint SDMT meeting. And I wanted to share some of the feedback that I received because as I was preparing last night, I felt like they really hit the mark. And so feedback from our SAC and SDMT was that you can feel the love at Garden Elementary. The teamwork and the WIN block, which is our supplemental support instructional block where we design from acceleration to remediation, what individuals needs is what WIN stands for. Our school community has a great home-school connection. We have leveled literacy intervention in every ESE classroom, and every ESE teacher is trained in the delivery of that research-based intervention, which we also use for our ESOL population and our lower quartile. And then lastly, this one I felt really summarized what I feel as well. Garden is a wonderful school with a small-town neighborhood feel. While excelling academically and supporting students' emotional needs, the staff support one another above and beyond expectations while keeping students' needs at the forefront and recognizing the whole child. So without a doubt, I feel, and I'm grateful to know that my SAC members and SDMT also feel that it truly is great to be a Garden Gator. So now we'll talk a little bit about our data. We demonstrated a significant growth from our 2018-19 data. We were 70 points improved overall as a school community. When we last were here, I was speaking to a C school grade that we had earned in 2018-19. And it is with great pride that I'm here today to tell you that we increased in all but one of the areas when you look at the school grade components and would have had the grade equivalent of an A this past school year. And that did not happen by accident. That was a lot of hard work poured into that and very intentional focus on meeting the needs of our school community. In 2018, the areas that were of highest level in need of attention were our math learning gains for our lower quartile, and then also our ESSA subgroup, ELL, and Hispanic demonstrated a need for more support. So we took a little bit of time to celebrate our success with our data, but then we got right back to work about what are we going to do about it, because there are always areas that we need to make sure that we are remaining focused upon. At Garden Elementary, the school improvement planning process is just that. It's a process. It is a continual process that we work together as school leaders with our grade level teams, collaborating in professional learning communities. Our progress monitoring team works together to help really pull through the data so that our teachers are able to help us process it and see what we can do to meet the needs of our students. This past year in 2021, as we were setting our school goals, we worked as our progress monitoring team and we created stretch goals for ourselves. So we looked at the normal formula of where 2%, where we needed to show growth, but then as a team, we thought about what we had, where we were, and we set the bar a little bit higher for ourselves. And we almost made them like to the T, some of those stretch goals. So that was something that we definitely continued this year, even with the growth that was demonstrated. We still set stretch goals for ourselves entering in as we're moving forward in the 21-22 school year. I cannot reiterate enough about the exceptional dedicated staff that has an intentional focus on meeting the needs of the students and the families that we serve. Our staff members work regularly above and beyond their collaborative planning time. They are taking care of each other and collaborating at all times and really support one another professionally and personally. We use state standards as the driving force of how we are planning for our instruction. We use our research-based district-approved curriculum. We are well aware of test specifications and utilize those as we're formatting questions that we're posing to our students and selecting tasks in our classrooms. We use multiple data points as we are designing the action plans that we'll use to respond to our students. And we seek support from our parents. We definitely say often that it takes a village, and we lean on every component of our village. Our parents have been incredible rising up to know that we have gaps, but they're a part of what's going to be helpful in filling them. And so we have really leaned in a lot on our parents and tried to make sure that we're clear in communicating the areas of need and how they can help support us with supporting their children to reach the goals. With Jumpstart funds, we're able to contract certified teachers to provide supplemental support to our students. Again, I mentioned those research-based materials, and we do use those with fidelity. We use the leveled literacy intervention kits, and thanks to the expertise of our reading recovery teacher and our literacy lessons teacher, they are able to provide training and ongoing coaching and support with the use of those materials for ELA. We also use the Sarasota Numeracy Project for math, commonly referred to as GLOSS, to provide interventions of filling the holes with math. But in addition to those supplemental supports, we maintain an intentional focus on the high quality of Tier 1 instruction. Core and more is where the core has got to be solid, just like all of our cores, right? So we focus on the importance of making sure that the core instruction, the bulk of what all of our students are receiving, are standards-based. We're asking appropriate questions aligned to the intentionality of that standard, and ultimately in grades 3 through 5, how it will be assessed. Our PBIS is always a very intentional focus for our school community, from our Tier 1 systems that we have in place to the work that we have poured into enhancing our EBD program. Our WIN block that I talked about, what individuals need, is an opportunity that every grade level has to meet the needs of our students, whether it's remedial or acceleration. And we supplement that with our contract services, but we also supplement that with the talent of our teachers at every grade level. And the other thing that has really been beneficial for us, we were not one of the schools selected for an instructional facilitator, but we do need that component. And thankfully, I have incredible teacher leaders. With Jumpstart funds, I am able to contract them and provide them with extra duty hours to assist with our progress monitoring efforts, looking at our data, looking to see what professional development that is needed, and providing support to our staff. And I cannot forget to mention the support that we've received from our elementary specialist. The expertise within the group that provides support to our school community and to all of our elementary schools is exceptional, as well as the support that we receive from our district leadership. So things to do in 21, 22, and I probably should have put 23, 24, 24, 25. We will continue to do all that we can to meet the needs of our school community with the resources that were provided. I was very, very happy to see when the strategic plan was released that our school improvement plan goals were very much aligned with the strategic plan that Dr. Asplin has released. And so I think that really kind of filled our bubbles a little bit because it reassured us of the work that we were doing and helped us make sure that we continue on that path and remain dedicated and intentional about the support that we're providing. So again, I thank you for the opportunity to be here, and most importantly, I thank you for the opportunity to lead at Garden Elementary School and to serve as a principal in Sarasota County. Thank you.
Thank you. It sounds great, and really remarkable recovery there. Do you assign the students to the classroom, or do parents get to pick their teacher? Because I know that gets to be a problem sometimes because the PTA moms who are involved, they pick the teacher who's been there, and it turns out that sometimes the students who need more help are put with the brand new teacher, and there's a lot of things to learn. So do you assign the students, or do you allow the parents to pick?
We're very intentional about the placement of our students. If parents offer input, we do take that into consideration. I do ask that they provide us with information about the ideal classroom learning environment that would be best suited to meet the needs of their child as opposed to a teacher. Because I believe as the school leader, I have insight on those classroom learning environments. And we also really get to know our students. And so I guess it's a little bit of both, but most importantly, we place the students based on where we believe their academic, social, and emotional needs will be best met.
Good, thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Nations.
Good morning. I gotta
Oh, sorry.
do the little swap there. Good morning. I am glad to see you this morning, and very proud to say that this year, last year we launched into 21 and we continued our theme because we really had hoped we'd go back to more normal last year, but as we've heard this morning, that didn't happen. So this year we continued our theme and just expanded it into Explore 22. And because it's education and we just need one more acronym, our focus at Wilkinson with that word explore is really what our collective focus is about, which is to engage students every day, examine data, plan with standards focus in mind, loving outrageously, opening our doors for collaboration with one another, and making sure that we're focused on relationships and embedding academic rigor. And we knew that if we are going to make a difference this year, we have to stay very focused on those, on all of those elements of learning. And I think you'll see that woven throughout what we're going to talk about today when we talk about Wilkinson. As we know, there's always quantitative data, which I'm going to go take a deeper dive into that in a moment, but I wanted to take a minute to look into some things that are both quantitative and qualitative on our campus. Our staff continues to focus on a very deep level of instruction and understanding instruction. So like Amy said, we are very thankful for our district specialists who are really investing in our, not just our school as a whole, but in grade level teams and in one-on-one coaching opportunities. We know that as when you think about professional development, the research says that only 15%, if I go to a typical traditional professional development opportunity, I'm going to retain about 15% of what I heard there and implement about 15%. But with coaching and feedback, in those collaborative conversations, that number goes to 85% of retention. And so we've really focused on that this year as a school team and then with our district specialists as well. How can we develop more of a coaching culture at the school? And we're seeing it, and we're seeing the impact of it already, which I think is pretty exciting. Our powerful community partnerships continue at Wilkinson. Of course, one of the big things that we had to put on pause due to COVID was the matching of every student pre-K through 3 with a reading mentor through our Rock and Reader program and reading mentorship program, but we are well on our way to reestablishing that on our campus. So we were thrilled when we could allow our volunteers back on campus, and they are coming back, and it's very, very exciting. We do benefit from receiving an intervention teacher this school year, and that has already made a big impact on our instructional delivery, on that coaching opportunities that we talked about, and our data focused. We also received an additional behavior specialist. We're a behavior cluster school, as you know, so we have a behavior specialist assigned to our cluster program, but having that additional behavior specialist on the campus has benefited our students and staff with being able to intervene early and also to make an impact on our positive behavior support that will help us to expand that model school status. I'm very proud of the fact that STEAM Station, where Thinkers Tinker, is now a registered trademark of the Sarasota County School Board. And I think that is really exciting, and we continue to expand that program. Our classes continue to visit weekly, a week at a time, over time, to dive deeper into science with ELA and math deeply woven into that experience when they're there. Our Jumpstart funds are being used for multiple opportunities for learning on the campus. And Ms. Rose, you asked earlier about what would the next round look like? Like if we finish semester 1, what's our data? We're already adjusting some of what we're doing with that, but we're doing a very robust tutoring program after school where we're meeting about 60 children after school, giving them an additional dose of ELA and math. They did not access the transportation at the level that we thought they would, so the allocated funds that we had for that, we're asking to reallocate and be able to expand it even further for the spring. But we already had the plan for that to go all year long. We also implemented something new called Media Mondays with our Jumpstart funds, where we're having a staff member available for homework help and book checkout and computer access, because many of our families don't have computer access. So being able to know every Monday I can come with my family, access the media center. We're doing STEM challenges in there. Right now we have storybook pumpkins on display that families have made at home, and they're coming to see them. They're really enjoying Media Mondays, and we think that that's another way to have a positive interaction on campus with our families. We've added 2 intervention teacher positions this year. We did that even before our FSA data came in because we were closely monitoring data all year last year, and we know that continuing to take care of the unfinished learning, I love that term, is going to only happen when we are very intentional about our interventions. So we've added an intervention teacher at 2nd and 3rd grade, as well as 4th and 5th grade. Another thing that we do at Wilkinson that I think is something that we should be very proud of is that we're growing leaders on our campus among our staff. We've been able to promote 8 leaders into school or district positions over the past 5 years, which I think is wonderful. But even more exciting is that we have 8 more leaders just waiting in the wings. They're either part of Leadership Academy currently, they've graduated from Leadership Academy, or they're finishing up their ed leadership degrees because they believe in this beautiful thing that we all work in called education. We are benefiting from our mental health therapy. We have 2 now on our campus, thanks to a generous donor for the second one, and a student Zen Den where students can go when they just need a moment. And Mr. Edwards, you asked earlier about what's happening for teachers. You know, when's the pause happening? We have a community partner that's now building an adult Zen Den on our campus for teachers and staff to be able to do just that, which I think is also an important element. We have 136 students taking part in our after-school clubs, which is more than a third of our campus taking part in after-school clubs, getting that enrichment that they so desperately need. And then we too benefit from reading recovery and lit lessons. We are very excited, though, that we are adding 5 of our ESC teachers to the State Department of Education pilot that's taking place here, where they will develop and be able to gain some more very intensive training in ELA to support our students. And then finally, family engagement continues to be a very big focus at Wilkinson, and we're very excited to do our first in-person in December. We will be having our first STEAM night. When we do drill down into the quantitative aspects of data, last year, and this slide is maybe a little difficult to understand, but I'm going to explain the right side first. We knew that without the benefit of 1920 data, we still needed to drill down. So we went at it last year at 3 different levels, which was the school-wide data wall, which you see in the left-hand picture, which is updated regularly when we get new data, when we get new iReady data, when we get our attendance data, our office discipline referrals, and of course any statewide data that we do have. So now it does include last year's statewide data and our target group data. Then we also asked every teacher to have a classroom data wall where they're focused on the students in their classroom to be able to see what growth am I seeing over time. And then finally, we have a school-wide data wall, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about on the next slide. But what you see there with all those little colorful stickies is that represents a student. Every one of those is a student at Wilkinson and what is happening with them. So we really frame our PLC discussions around what is happening and how are we going to support this student. And that is a really important conversation that continues this year because it's kind of that so what. I know that there are a lot of questions about what happened at Wilkinson, and I think Dr. Cantalupo really spoke to that this morning when she talked about learning gains and learning gains and lowest quartile learning gains. When you talk about the cell size, Wilkinson's cell size of our 5th graders that from last year, our 2021 data for learning gains was based on 76 students. Our lowest quartile was based on 16 students with a matched score. So that cell size impacted us because anytime you have a student that's non-proficient, it impacts your cell size. The smaller the cell size is, the greater the impact, right? And so that we know is a reality. It's not an excuse, but it's a reality. But we did have our eyes on these students all year last year, and we knew that many of them were struggling, and many of them, they have a story to tell. And so we can drill down and we can see what supports are we putting in place for them, and that conversation continues, and as I said earlier, we've made some adjustments. We do have some pieces that we are extremely proud of in our proficiency data. When you look at our 3rd grade data, and this is what you see on the left side of that slide, when you look at our 3rd grade data, our 3rd grader increased in proficiency from 39% to 46%. That was a 7 percentage point gain. When you compare that with what happened at other Title I schools, we were one of 2 Title I schools that showed gains. So we feel very proud of what happened in our 3rd grade, and we believe it makes our 4th grade cadre this year even stronger. And by the same token, we maintained in math, which again is something that didn't happen everywhere. And so in 3rd grade, we're very proud of that. And in 4th grade, we saw the same kinds of gains. And then in our 5th graders, we definitely saw the decrease on that with that 5th grade cohort of students. The other piece about our 5th graders, when we did drill down this summer, we looked to see how many of them were growing up at Wilkinson. Well, 45% of them had been at Wilkinson for 5 or 6 years. So again, that, it's not an excuse, but it's a reality of how do we close the gap when you have that kind of a mobility with our students. So we continue to look at that and how many touches can we give to a student. When we're looking at our school improvement strategic planning, you can see, again, that's kind of a closer shot of those individual student data with pictures to say, what are we doing for Johnny or Susie, and how are we going to move the needle for each child? How does that translate to what's happening in classrooms? So our teams work very diligently to have conversations with each other and to do planning. They've had some planning days as part of Jumpstart tutoring and Title I funds, and will continue to do so. And we really work on that collaboration part of the 5 C's of 21st century learning, and then of course building in communication and critical thinking as well. As we move forward, what are the next steps? You know, and I agree with Amy. It's not a 1 year step. It's a multi-year step. But as I said earlier, we know that coaching and collaboration is one of the things that's going to help teachers become stronger, because we can learn so much from each other. There's so much power in opening the doors. So one of the pieces that we're doing this year is to further drill into our data. Part of our classroom visits, we're looking for those explore elements that I shared with you earlier in our walkthroughs and in our visits. And we're looking for those places where maybe we can tighten up what we're doing. What are we seeing every single day when we walk through classrooms? And what's our walkthrough data telling us? So we're getting ready to do PLCs around that. In January, we've given teachers, and I know you can't see this, it's very small at the top and it's very small here if I hold it up for you, but I want you to see that teachers are having the opportunity to post come explore in this classroom invitation outside their classroom doors, and it'll look something like this. Can I take photos? Can I not take photos in this classroom? If I'm looking for feedback as a teacher in the classroom, these are some things I might look for feedback on. And then if I'm coming as a visitor, I can leave feedback for that teacher to say, wow, this is what I saw based on the feedback. And we have many teachers that are interested in opening their doors and letting people and learning from each other, which I celebrate. I think that is huge. Again, speaking back to what you said, Mr. Edwards, about, lightening the load, we all recognize that there are days that I don't want anybody in that classroom. Just like there's days we don't want people in our offices, right? It's the same thing. So we gave every teacher an I need my space sign, so that way, and I told them it can't be posted 24/7, but it's there to recognize, you know what? We all have those moments. If that's posted, that's a sign to a visitor, not today, just not today. Maybe so-and-so's dysregulated, maybe something, I need to backtrack a little bit. And we want to recognize that and honor it with our teachers. But we are really excited for our teachers to start opening their doors for true collaboration starting in January in this new and exciting fashion. Finally, some of the pieces that we continue to build, and actually we're bringing back now, we were unable to do during the pandemic, is our intervention hour, because those small groups and being able to leave the classroom just weren't happening, but we're bringing back our power hour interventions for students in grades 3 through 5. They'll be determined based on the data that we're looking at and what is the focus for every child to help move them forward. We continue to build out STEAM Academy and our STEAM Station. And we really believe that when we do that we'll be accomplishing Wilkinson's vision, which is to work together to build children's futures. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I know Jane won't be able to stay if we have to leave, so we won't have too many comments, but I love your school, and your STEAM Academy is fantastic. I think we've all been there to see it, but it's exciting what those kids are learning. And on our website, I think this week we posted a picture of that too, so people can go to SarasotaCountySchools.net and take a peek at what we're doing. Thank you so much, and I'm glad you're opening your doors, and that's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you, ladies. Dr. Evans? Ms. Tanash?
Ms. Brown, I think Mr. Edwards has a question.
Oh, Mr. Edwards, go ahead. I'm sorry. You weren't there a second ago.
Quickly, the thread here that isn't highlighted enough, Mr. Cantis mentioned it briefly also. Both of those principles mention mental health. And the second mental health professional that Susan acquired through a donor was something that I helped orchestrate. And I think it's important that that thread gets acknowledged here, because that's part of the struggle of our students while we're trying to accelerate instruction. So,
Thank you, Tom.
Okay.
You're good to go.
All right. Awesome. Let me practice with this fancy. There we go. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Sharika Evans. I am the so proud principal for Suncoast School for Innovative Studies. We have the honor of being your only Title I charter school. So I'm going to start today by telling you, first of all, I represent probably one of the most hardworking staffs that you have ever met. At a charter school, it's a little bit different from being in a district school because you're a charter. You were designed for a purpose, and our school was designed to celebrate the multiple intelligences of each child. Having a Title I school that is learning its identity is really challenging. Before there was a COVID pandemic, my school got the honor of getting me as their leader, but that was after 10 years of some dynamic leadership that was just very different from the one that I bring. So we have been in the upswing of something. This is my third year as the principal of this school, so our team is excited because we are heading exactly where we're supposed to go. We know what challenges we had, we took them head on, and we are exactly where we need to be and getting the results we are expecting to get this year. So with that, I'll go to our very next slide of what's working well. We look at our ready growth, and one of the things that we've always noted is that our kids do very well in our ready. If you look at their beginning data to the middle to the end, our kids show up to 162% growth in our ready within their math or their reading. The challenge at our school is getting that growth to translate over to FSA and to standardized testing. So we do really well with our growth, and we've also been working really hard with our teachers to make sure that we are all looking at data and ready to do the work that needs to be done. We're really excited this year. The attendance from 3rd through 5th grade, everyone went through what we went through last year. And our school, I've heard mention of cell size. We have a very small school. We have about 150 students this year. So our cell size has always been a factor. If we look at our 5th grade, we're talking about 22 students. You're talking about, 30 third grade students. Is not very large. So it doesn't take a lot to sway one way or the other. We're aware of that, but it's really about those individual students and also helping our individual teachers be able to reach those students. It's just a very complex formula. And we're so excited that this year, our 3rd through 5th grade students are on this campus and they're excited to learn. Last year, that was not necessarily a story. Our 5th graders had the most absences out of all of our students. And it was really hard to reach those students and make them want to be on campus. What's going to make them want to be on campus? I don't know if you guys know, but at our school, we had before care, after care, and Saturday school from day one, because my team met throughout the summer and we were saying, hey, these kids are going to need something. We got to be there for them. They have not been in school. The parents were feeling how they were feeling about maybe their child may have lost some ground. So we were ready day one. That doesn't mean that our parents took advantage of it. We thought that we have the whole school. We were ready. We were going to have our whole school an hour before school started, 2 to 3 hours after school ended, and on Saturdays for 4 hours. That's what we were ready for. We wasn't ready. We wasn't expecting 15 students to show up out of the 200. It's like, where is everybody else? So we had to really address what's going to make them want to learn. What's going to make them want to be there? Is one thing to say I have before care, after care, so on and so forth, but what's going to make that parent say, let me get my child there? And we're excited because we think we found the answer, and it's really going to be with your extracurricular activities. So this year, we have Drumline. We have partnered with Drama Kids. We have drama. We have dance. We have things that make kids say, no, I want to be here. And if you guys could have seen my face when my 5th grade student told their parent, no, you got to come back and get me because I'm going to stay for drumline because they came to pick them up. I'm going to do this program today. And they did. They came back. So we realized the power that exists within our students. If they want to do it, they will communicate to their parents, and their parents say, okay, they just went and came back in a couple of hours to get them. So now we have an opportunity to do the other things that we wanted to do. Our stakeholder communication has been key. We have really worked on increasing that across the board. I'm a very transparent leader, and that kind of trickles down to my staff. We're very transparent. Whatever you want to talk about, whatever you want to see, let's do it. Here it is, and here's what we're going to do and how we're going to respond to it. But how do you get that out to the community? Well, you have Class Dojo, you have your apps, you have your call-outs, your text-outs, your websites. You have everything that you can think of, and you still may have a parent say, well, I don't check any of those 6 things you just mentioned, so it's what else can we do? So then you want to look at, well, how can I build this real relationship with our parent? We got to get them on that campus. And one of the most fun times that we had fairly recently was having an AR pet rally. Now, at our Title I school, if you come into our library, our kids were definitely reading, but we are so excited to have accelerated reader because you're able to track it, right? Most of my admin team, we're all born and raised in the district. We've done all the trainings within the district. So to bring this to a charter school was exciting. But how do you get kids excited about it? How do you get parents excited about reading? Well, for most Title I families that are really just trying to get through the day-to-day, the pandemic is going to impact them differently. So they're not necessarily focused on the academics as much as you would want them to be. So how do you make them excited? You make it relevant to them. At our AR pep rally, our drumline performed, our majorette dancers danced. We had community partners with food trucks there, and we gave out prizes, gift cards to these kids for getting AR points for reading. And I'm telling my parents, you can help. All you have to do is encourage your child to read, encourage them to get the points, and this is how it's going to affect you. If that's going to be a $25 gift card to Publix because it'll allow them to feed their family, then that's what it is. If that's going to be an Instant Pot that they've been dreaming about but not able to afford, then you get in the drawing for that. But we're trying to make sure we highlight how they can help their families right now. The kids were just so excited. They were so excited to get a McDonald's gift card because guess what that meant for my kids? That meant that dinner's on me, Mom. You don't have to cook tonight. You're going to use this gift card. And to see the parents respond to that was incredible. It was all the affirmation that we needed to continue the work that we're doing. So I'm going to go to my next slide and what's working well. It's so much, but I hate to leave it. But I have to brag a little bit and just say that my admin team is definitely a part of what's working well. When we say that in-house support and the things that they're willing to do, my admin team that's sitting over there went to your very fine bus depot to learn how to drive buses because we want to make sure we can get our kids to school. That's a level of dedication that we have at our school. There is no excuses. We're going to do what it takes to get our kids there and to teach them. So now we're going to go in and dive a little bit into our data. We're very transparent. One of the most shocking things that we saw with our data was our science scores. And again, we're talking about maybe 22, 23 kids, and none of them were able to demonstrate proficiency on that standardized test. Doesn't mean that the teachers didn't work hard and try to train and try to reach those kids and get them on campus, but this is how they scored. In response to that, what do you do? Well, 3rd through 5th grade did not perform the way we wanted. We've been in a paradigm shift for now our 3rd year at our school and saying that all kids can learn. A C is not okay. They can do better than a C, and this is how we're going to do it. So all of our teachers, 3rd through 5th grade, were changed. We tried to match the skill sets with what we needed in 3rd through 5th grade. And we had an amazing team set up. And then amazing opportunities opened up at amazing other schools. And then we had a whole nother set of teachers. That teacher shortage is interesting, what you can do to encourage a teacher to go from one school to another. So we said, okay, we're not going to give up. We got a second set of amazing teachers and amazing skill sets, and they are lined up, ready to go. After the first day of school, okay, now we're on tier 3. We're on the next set of teachers. Like the turnover was incredible. So what do you do to keep teachers at your school? Number one, you have to recognize what we're going through. So we were at one point probably the lowest paying charter school for our teachers. I know we was when I came there and left the district. It was incredible. I didn't know you can survive off of something so little. So one of my first things that I wanted to do was bring that up. And with the help of my board and some amazing donors, we are now equivalent. So we're able to offer competitive pay. But guess what? I found out that is not enough. Because everybody's offering competitive pay. You got to go up. It's like, what else can you do? So we have 2 planning periods. One thing I heard from my teachers was that we don't have enough time to do all this stuff you're asking us to do. So they have 2 planning periods, and we make sure we have those supports in there. We have extra mental health counselors, not just for our kids and our families, but also for our teachers. There's a lot of times that we have massage therapists that will come on just for our teachers. 15 minutes, sign up and get a massage, because it's so easy to focus on the data. That's what we're here for. But we cannot forget who's in there with those kids. And they are our number 1 players. They're our number 1 star players. So if you need a massage in the middle of the day to get you through the next part, then we're going to do that. If I have to get on a grill and cook their favorite foods, and I know all my teachers' favorite food, I'm going to do that. But that's the kind of things that we have to do to offset. What is it we're not offering? Well, what we are offering is an attention to you as a person, the same way we're putting attention to our kids as people. And that is what's going to help make SSIS be the unique place it is. We are doing backwards planning. We have our hands-on learning opportunities is one of my favorite. We bought 2 vans specifically because we wanted to be able to take our kids out and have them learn. For Title I students, they demonstrate a hard time grasping abstract concepts in math and science. What I noticed and what we knew about our staff is that they were not comfortable teaching math and science. They would teach reading, but they get nervous. And if you're not feeling confident in what you're teaching, you're not going to teach it. You're going to avoid it. So the partnerships that we've been seeking out this year, taking our kids to iFly, for example, they've been working so hard to study physics and motion, but to be able to go there and to have that type of experience takes it to a whole nother level. Partnering with the Moat and all of our different community partners and showing our teachers as well as our kids, math is not scary, it's necessary. Science is not scary, it's necessary. It's all around us. So we are demystifying both of those subjects, not just for our students, but also for our teachers. And we are showing, we really embrace the Carol Dweck, where you have to have a growth mindset. You have to. A lot of our students will come in with a set mindset. I'm good at math because my dad is. But we have to teach them that you can get the strategies and you can practice and become great at something. It's the same thing that we're teaching our teachers. We're growing our own leaders at our school as well. We're growing our own teachers. We have to be there to support them, and we celebrate every success they've made, from tests and certifications that they've gotten to what is it that we need at our school for our kids, and we celebrate every step of the way. The professional development that we offer, we take full advantage of Sarasota County's professional development system. Good job, everybody who work on that. We also look for other opportunities with the Charter School Consortium, and we are very deliberate in our partnerships that way. My Dean of Students is phenomenal and provides in-house professional development throughout the year. She's going to be right there with our teachers to make sure that our data and our curriculum is aligned, and we can all go in and model whatever we need to have happen in those classrooms. So professional development is ongoing and is very strategic. We're looking at our math and ELA deficiencies. We were not as low as it was in science, but we're not where we want to be. This school has not been an A school since it went from being an FCAT to FSA. So we've been on a mission anyway, to make sure that our kids can demonstrate the growth that we want them to show, to demonstrate, but also the level of success. We really want to make sure that our kids can demonstrate that they can be just as successful as any other student given the same test. With our strategic student placement and support, at SSIS, our teachers have always been amazing at helping that tier 1, that tier 3 intervention, the kids that really, really needed help. But the kids that didn't need so much help or needed enrichment, they were kind of there. So with our school this year, we created a talented and gifted classroom for our primary and for our intermediate, or first grade and second grade, and our 4th and 5th. We were very intentional about accelerated learning, and we're very intentional about our remediation. So that is designed school-wide, and we collaborate on that all the time. But the difference it has made in those kids to be in a talented and gifted classroom has already been phenomenal, even for our parents' support. With our school improvement strategic plan, and first of all, you're seeing a picture of some of my staff members on a Saturday. That was a couple of Saturdays ago. We are doing math and movement. One of the biggest things within our ESSA groups with African Americans, students with disabilities, so on and so forth, we know that our kids are struggling with math, but we also know they struggle to stand still. They struggle to sit and learn for an extended amount of time. How can you make that engaging? How can you make it fun? It's going to be with math and movement. Our teachers and our students have been demonstrating phenomenal growth. Just the other day, we had our 3rd graders working with, just doing their multiplication for, I think they were doing 3 multiplication, and they were able to demonstrate 70% growth within that hour of just working and using these mats for math and movement. We believe that math and movement is going to be a key for our success in math and what we're going to demonstrate coming up in July when we get our scores back. We have ongoing data chats, and when we look at the professional development resources, we're your only Title I charter school, but we're also your only charter school that had a reading recovery teacher. And we were able to, we just were so honored to get a donor that gave us the money to secure another reading recovery teacher. And again, our numbers are low. And our reading recovery teacher, Ms. Crawford, had demonstrated phenomenal growth with 16 students throughout that particular school year. So what if we double it? 16 students in a school of less than 200 is very, very significant. So what if we get 32? Well, that's the whole grade level. And you're looking at building these readers before they get to 3rd grade. Reading recovery focuses on your 1st grade students. And then they're able to follow up when they go to 2nd grade and 3rd grade. So it is the beginning of a complete culture change at our school. And we're excited to have 2 reading recovery teachers this year. Some of these things you guys have seen, Kagan, Thinking Math, you're like, Sharika, why is that up there? Because at my charter school, they did not have that. We've had this training, Kagan and Thinking Math, but when we talked to our staff about it, they didn't understand what we were saying. So before the teachers came back, our teachers came back a week before so that we can have those trainings. And now when you walk around the school, you see that our kids understand how to use a thinking map to demonstrate what they're thinking and how to solve problems. They understand, our teachers understand how to get more class engagement by using Kagan strategies. And you would think, well, that doesn't make a big difference. It absolutely does, because everybody wants to maximize the opportunities when the kids are right there in front of them. And our kids are experiencing the fun of just using Kagan and thinking maps. It's just so awesome. They would love to show you. Each of you are invited. Science kits. We did not create these science kits. They were there. And again, the teacher apprehension of just using them, we're using what we already have. And now kids are excited about science when they were so scared before. They were so afraid to even just to do anything in it. They just thought they were all bad. And now teachers are like, no, we're gonna do some science experiments. You know, we're going to compete in the district science fair. We're just so excited about those things because it shows that the hard work that we've been doing is actually paying off. The work that still needs to be done. One of the biggest things that I feel that needs to be done, we look at our educator experience. I understand we're in a teacher shortage, but one of my hardest lessons learned last year, when I look at my 5th grade team, there are 2 teachers, and then of course we had almost a full class that wasn't on campus. And when one teacher went to a different school, you have to fill that vacancy. So you look for your certifications, you find someone that's like, yes, you can do this. Go ahead, go in there and teach. And then no, they couldn't do that. They couldn't go into the classroom and be okay within that classroom environment. Title I has a completely different set of challenges that they were maybe not ready to take on. So then that teacher left. And then we get another teacher. You can't do that. You cannot do that and be okay. So equitable access to teachers that have the experience for teaching all students, that have a track record for being successful is important. And in order for us to compete, we have to make ourselves more attractive. But what we've learned from that we can't just put anyone in those classrooms. Right now, I'm in one of my 5th grade classrooms. I teach that class because I refuse to just put someone in there that cannot take on that challenge. My dean of students is getting ready to go into a class because we're that dedicated to success. You can find someone with the certifications, but if they cannot connect with your students and your families, it's not going to be successful at all. When we look at our different ESSA groups with ELA, math proficiency, so on and so forth, the discipline alternative is one that I'm really excited to talk to you guys about today. With all of those different ESSA groups, they have a tendency to represent numbers or overrepresent. They can overrepresent in the exceptional student world. They can overrepresent in the out-of-school numbers. We don't want that. We need our kids in school, in class, no matter what. When I first got to that campus, I remember tracking data, and on average, students was out of class at least 30 minutes a day, just wandering the hall. So we were really focused on keeping them inside of the classroom. We developed a sunshine room. Our sunshine room is equipped with, number one, we have 2 counselors on our campus, and we made sure that all of our staff is, of course, youth mental health trained and certified. But inside of that classrooms is access to those counselors. It's also access to those youth mental health trainers, because they're helping our kids figure out how to regulate their emotions, how can they get back on task. If our students are struggling in reading and math, they may act out. And we have a lot of new teachers or something like that. You're not able to recognize they're just acting out. They can't do the math that you want them to do. And then when you get the child into that sunshine room, they're able to articulate that. Well, I can't do that. They're able to get tutoring right there on the spot. Or maybe someone stepped on their shoe or called them a name and they're still upset about it. Or maybe something happened at home. Whatever those maybes are is discussed in that sunshine room. And we have been able to successfully talk to our students, get them back into the classrooms, and work with our teachers about that. So we don't have a lot of OSS. We have a lot of learning going on because we are equipping our students with how to learn anyway. How do you learn anyway? And how do you articulate what you need? If you're hungry, we can feed you. If you're thirsty, we can give you water, but they got to say it. But we have babies. We have kindergarten through 5th grade. So they might not always say what they need or being able to recognize that that's what they need. I have 5th graders that was getting upset at the beginning of the year, and you think that they're angry with each other. No, someone was embarrassed. That was the emotion that we all talked about for a while. When you get embarrassed, how do you react? Well, they reacted with anger. They wanted to fight. No, you don't have to do that. Just say, okay, I'm embarrassed right now. I need a moment. Let me step away. And you give them these safe ways to deal with their emotions, and then they want to come back into class. They feel taken care of. So it's a pretty magical thing.
We've got a few comments. Jane Goodwin.
Well, I just want to say, Dr. Evans, I've met with you before and toured your wonderful school, and I wish you had been around when we first started the school, which was some years ago, because I was around, and I remember when, the school was on Tuttle. And there's always been a problem with the learning gains, the evaluation of monitoring of accountability for a very long time. So I am concerned about the numbers. I'm not going to say that I am not, because I really am. But I'm going to leave that for another time, and I'm going to say that I'm going to be in touch and come in and visit with you, and so that we can have a discussion of what's going on, because I think that you have put your heart and soul, and your faculty now has put their heart and soul into this, but I don't know if it's enough. I'm seeing some of your students go on to middle school not prepared, and I'm hearing principals say we're getting students from SSIS who are not prepared. So that is a problem. I'm a very big proponent of our charter schools, and I'm happy that you're working with a consortium, which I think is a great benefit to you for other training and additional support. So I'm looking forward to visiting with you and having a deeper dive into what's going on.
We're looking forward to having you.
Ms. Rose?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to request the superintendent to have a separate meeting. Your passion is insurmountable, and I respect and appreciate that. being responsible for how the charter progresses and where we play in that role as a district. I would like to have a separate meeting to look at the charter, look at data. I want to see the data as a board, and to look at how it's progressing and where our responsibility lies with that. So that's a formal request coming from me, if that is feasible. I know that we've done pieces like that, the board has in the past.
Now, I see him writing it down, and I agree. You are really such a secret. I mean, there are so few people that know about our Title I charter school. You're the only, and there are very few Title I charter schools in the country. Visible Men Academy gets a lot of, press, and they get a lot of contributions from the community and things like that. I mean, I'd like to have us have some sort of a fundraiser like Visible Men's and get some donors, regular donors for your school, because what you do is so special. And I want to work with you also. Perhaps you're so close to the Sailor Circus, maybe we can get some of your 3rd and 4th and 5th graders over to work in their after school. I too will come and visit you and look forward to talking to you more.
I'm excited to have all of you there and to continue these conversations because it's necessary. It's necessary to look at where we are, and I can't wait to show you where we're going. We're taking on a challenge that a lot of people would kind of skirt away from, but we're taking it on head on. So I'm excited that you guys are going to come in.
Are you working with Brandon on the Step Up for Student scholarships for your kids too?
We are working with that's a focus for us at our school to make sure our parents know how
to. And the New World Reading Initiative too. Good.
Yes,
I want to make sure you take advantage of that too. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
If we can put the PowerPoint back on, thank you. I have to follow the dynamic Dr. Evans. I am going to apologize now. I'm a little more stoic than she is, but I will be faster. You were a little slow. No, it's okay. So this is our school. We are located in downtown Sarasota. We are your oldest public charter school. We have been open since 1997, and actually all of you have been there, so I don't even need to tell you that. I can go over this data, but I think you've heard it 20 times now. It's all the same. We have all the same things to work on, and we have the same successes. So what I was going to focus on, except for civics, look at that civics score. We're amazing. But what I instead wanted to focus upon was, what we were working on and more so what we do a little bit differently. I did want to point out our ethnic composition. Just because sometimes us charters get a little bit of a bad rap, like we cherry pick. We are representative of the district, our demographics, as well as our free and reduced lunch. It is incredibly similar to your other middle schools and the district as a whole. So I did want that known. One of our focuses, and I'm stealing this part from Dr. Shelley, because in one of our pre-meetings, she was talking about her graduation rates. And I was like, oh, okay, lady. So I'm going to talk about getting our students into high school programs, because we believe that if the more students that we move into these smaller learning communities where they will be happy and successful in high school and or then have those opportunities for college, that is a main focus for us, so that once our kids leave us, they do well. And I hope that the high school principals agree that they do.
I love this slide, and I would like to see it for all of our middle schools.
Thank you. Our biggest feeder is we feed into Sarasota High School's ACE program. As you can see, that's that really large one. But we do feed into many different programs, including Booker High School's VPA is another large program. Our IB enrollment is fairly large. We do try to send kids to MAST, which is a smaller program, and into the Booker High School ACE program. Many students, that's actually a double, because they're in the VPA as well as the ACE program based upon their really intelligent scheduling that they do over at Booker. And we try to get these kids into the programs that they're going to do the best in. so that they can be successful and move on. So that is a major focus for us. We do it with small academies in our own school so that they are prepped and they have all the prereqs as well as the portfolio creation or audition pieces, et cetera, well before, and they do it in our school. They may even audition in our school so that we can ensure that they have everything they need to have that opportunity. So that's a major focus for us.
I'm sorry, Karen, did you want to talk to her now? Did you have a
I'm
comment?
sorry. I
Or when
did
she-
not. This is old. Thank you for asking.
Oh, it must have. All right. Go
Keep
ahead.
going. We are a Cambridge ACE school, but we still are able to feed also into IB. It is a much smaller amount of students for us personally, just based upon geography. Last year, our 7th and 8th grade students earned 479 high school credits combined, and that was 46% of the eligible students. So that was one of the ways that we are working, if you look at the statistics, that students that receive acceleration in middle school are more likely to go to college. So we're just tracking that information. And then our special enrollment program, so that's the total for the high school programs, and I can't even say that number, but is it 68%? It's really, thank you. It's really small. So 68% of our 8th graders moved into a special program in high school last year. So what do we do? How do we do it? What did we learn from COVID? Our strategic planning at our school. We actually do things a little bit differently. We do not do school-wide progress monitoring. We do not use iReady. We only, we allow our teachers to do the progress monitoring in their classrooms, except for those students that are performing below level. So only the students deemed not proficient with a 1 or 2 in reading or math, or both, because oftentimes it's both, are in a 1-period reading and math lab concurrently, or if they only need one or the other, they're in one program only every day for one of their electives in lieu of Spanish. So that is what we do as far as progress monitoring goes. The rest of it, if they are deemed proficient, it's teacher-created formative and summative unit assessments. We do not do any of the other quarterly assessments, iReady assessments, et cetera, that the district does. We do have choice for students, and we believe that that's a large part of our success as well, and it's something we keep working more and more towards, is teaching our kids like they're gifted. Gifted and talented methods are actually incredibly good methods for all students. And so we try to gear our professional development towards that. Stuff that we learned from COVID and our horrible year and a half, where I brilliantly thought it would be great not just to have concurrent learning, remote learners and in-class learners, but I was going to let them just hybrid and show up whenever they wanted, which made my teachers insane. However, it did make us learn these programs that we actually have still kept this year. So there were good things that came out of it. We were forced to learn how to use these different types of programs for assessments, for communication, for at home, for different ways to present material, and that has continued into this year. So that is actually a really great thing that happened out of it. Programs and procedures. Different things I already talked about. Actually, I guess I jumped my own slide. Read 180 universal for our students who are below level in reading, and we use ALEX for our students that are performing below level in mathematics. Why do I think that we are successful? We're incredibly strict. And because of our school-wide procedures, our school-wide discipline plan, our school-wide uniforms, including our grown-ups, all of those things mean that our time on task is maximized. I don't focus on what we can do before school, after school, or on Saturdays. It is what you can do in that 50 minutes you have that child. And I try to take the onus off of the home, and the onus off of the child and into what can we do in this classroom. During this 50 minutes, let's learn as much as possible. And I think that it's actually very helpful, and it puts our kids all on an even playing field, just like a school uniform does, which, by the way, we make sure that all of our students attend every field trip or all have a uniform, because if they can't afford it, we pay for it, through vouchers. So that way, again, they're all on the same playing field. So those are the different things that we can do, because we all know we have kids at home that are taking care of other kids and cooking and, don't have the assistance. And so we want to make sure that we're doing as much as possible at school. And we believe that the way we do that is just by being really, really strict. But it works. We use FSA data to individually schedule our students. So it is much more similar to a high school than a middle school. They do not travel in a pod. You may be in an algebra class and in a reading lab. It just depends on your needs. And although it's a lot more work, I think that it is more effective for the kids. That, kids aren't always great at everything, and so you're in the smart team and that's in your head, or you're on the dumb team and that's in your head. And we don't want those things. And there are kids that have different gifts and talents. So that's why we do individual scheduling. And then the last one is experiential learning. We do a lot of field trips. We do a lot of hands-on. We do a lot of interdisciplinary activities, labs, and we have our teachers as part of their bonus application that they get at the end of the year, that they go and observe at least 2 of their colleagues for that application piece. That is just one piece. And the whole purpose of it is to steal ideas, because we are better together. Achievement goals and focus. I'm students with disabilities and Black students, you may have heard this earlier, exact same thing. It's our same focus. The only difference that we are working on this year that we are adding, because what we were doing before isn't really making a difference with those groups, is that we added more of the SCL information that was provided to us by Dr. Moore, so that we can ensure equity for and inclusion for our Black students, equity and inclusion for our students with disabilities, and for our gender fluid students, which is definitely a much larger subgroup than it used to be, so that everyone is safe and that they can learn. And there's different ways that we're working on doing this, including administration taking on small groups of students that we are calling leadership groups and mentoring them, in our offices and having lunch with them once a week to work on developing grit and developing goals. And I just said that. And then, of course, the mental health, anxiety, and the discipline issues due to COVID. It's definitely a major challenge that we are focusing on. We feel like we're starting all over again, teaching kids how to use passes, teaching kids how to raise their hand and be polite and treat each other, not panic that their parents 1 minute late in car line, the anxiety and all of those things. But with the mental health dollars, we are able to do a lot. We also use a lot of community resources, also comes in and talks to our kids about bullying. The Child Protection Center comes in and talks to our kids about online safety, because social media is the devil and fighting against us every day. They also talk to them about healthy relationships from CPC. These different groups that we bring in, and Cell of Freedom is coming in to do our sex trafficking education courses. These experts in field, just another person, another adult that cares and is helping them. And I think I'm done. Look, pictures of kids. Thank you for our time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I have one question. You said you have strict discipline policies. If someone violates that policy, what happens to them?
For consequences, so we do follow the matrix provided to us by Dr. Clayton, and it does have a lot of different resources and options on it. We do a lot of work details, to be honest with you, unless a parent disagrees. Those are the kids, they may be sitting out at lunch, they're the ones doing the cleaning, they're the ones vacuuming my stairs that are always a mess, etc. They clean the school bus. So we do a lot of that as a consequence. We may, for some, it depends on the child, and again, it's individualized. Some children just don't want to be out of the classroom. So if that means that you have acted up in a class and the teacher's like, I gave them a warning, I gave them the rules, I'm like, send them to me. Now they are no longer with their peers. They have to sit with me for that class, and they don't want to sit with me because I'm boring, and there's no friends there. So it just depends on the child.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Karen?
I just wanted to point out, I really very much like your focus on students going into specific programs. I mean, your program's phenomenal overall, but you added a piece that I think is so important of what programs they go to in high school. And you said something about happy students, and I think that happy students are always successful students. So I just wanted to emphasize how you emphasize that, and it's very much appreciated and very observable.
Thank you.
Tom?
I just want to say, I'm such a fan of your school and what you do, but it exemplifies the parent choice that I love so much of what we have here in Sarasota County, and you do it with such a finesse and such great style. And what I really, really loved is that last slide that Ms. Goodwin and Ms. Brown picked up on, is that you focus on outcomes. So thanks. That's great. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies. Mr. Wilson, Ms. Lowitz.
Madam Chair, if I may, Ms. Ziegler had to leave, as you know, and she just asked me to apologize that she had to go. She had a call that she had a sick child that she had to pick up, but she was going to watch the rest of this through Zoom from her home. Also, I believe we have 40 minutes left, so that's really 10 minutes per group, just so you know, guys. The only thing I would ask is that I know if we do go a little bit over, that's great, but a lot of these folks have 1 o'clock meetings.
She's got a 12 o'clock
You have
meeting
12
with the
o'clock.
audit, so.
There's 1 o'clock, so
40 minutes
just wanted to
left.
bring that up.
Ray and I, 5 minutes each, buddy. All right, let's get it done.
Well, good morning. I want to just thank everyone for this opportunity to present on behalf of Laurel Nokomis School. This is the district's K through 8 model, and this is my 6th year as the principal at Laurel Nokomis School, and I continue to be a very, very proud principal at Laurel Nokomis School. This is our mission, can do, work hard, get smart, and I believe it aligns with our district focus, working together as one for the success of all. And so we're definitely focusing on making sure that we have collaborative efforts. But I just want to focus on our mission, and forgive me because I did write some notes because sometimes I can ramble. So I for your sake, I have some notes here. But when we think about can do, positive thinking, of course, tends to create positive results. And, to Mrs. Rose, you just made the comment about happy students, and so I think that that's very, very important. Therefore, the staff at Laurel Nokomis School, we understand that it is incumbent upon us to model a very positive, encouraging attitude, not just in what we say, but what we do, and also in what we believe. And if our students, of course, can see those positive results from our attitudes, then we believe that they, of course, are more likely to want to experience those same results. The bottom line here is that optimism is contagious. So this is why every morning the students at Laurel Nokomis will hear their proud principal during the morning announcements share a very, very positive quote every day. And one of my favorite quotes is by Og Mandino, and it reads, I am here for a purpose, and that purpose is to grow into a mountain and not shrink to a grain of sand. Henceforth will I apply all my efforts to become the greatest mountain of all, and I will strain my potential until it cries for mercy. Now, we are K through 8 school, so I know that may be verbose for some of our primary age students, so I actually summarized that for them. And so basically I said, well, the expectation from your principal is that you think until your brains hurt. And so our students hear that every single day. It's really good to get the day started, just to kind of get our energy going, get our students, focused on learning. And then when we look at the work hard aspect of our mission, we must, of course, teach the value of challenges. I like the way, and someone referenced, I believe, Dr. Evans that referenced Carol Dweck. Now, I really like the way she highlights the effect on the brain when we push through our comfort zones to grasp difficult concepts. And she also, Carol Dweck, goes on to talk about the neurons and how they form stronger connections, leading to basically improved intelligence over time. Therefore, our students must understand that effort and difficulty are paths, not roadblocks, to becoming smarter. In one of our 8th grade science classes the other day, the teacher had planned an egg drop lab challenge, which was kind of a reward for their hard work and effort. And out of the 28 students that competed, there were 8 students who were successful in protecting their egg from breaking. Now, what was so significant about this is that most of those students who were successful were students with autism, and many of you know that our school is a cluster site for students with autism, and so we celebrated with those students. I actually make that part of the morning announcements to highlight those students with autism. And so it's about inclusionary practices. It's about what are we doing for all of our kids. And so, of course, those students were very, very proud of their creative efforts. And the teacher made a note to highlight that, of course, all 28 students who competed were excited and they had a blast with the activity. And then the last part of our mission, get smart. We've all heard the phrase, smart is something you can get. And if we agree, then all learning, of course, must be student-centered. And I love the quote by Scott Hayden. And I don't know if you remember this quote, Mrs. Rose. I like to use this quite a bit. But teachers have 3 loves: love of learning, love of learners, and, of course, the love of bringing the first 2 loves together. And so teachers, of course, at Laurel Nokomis School, they like to employ very experiential learning and active learning strategies that allow students to build a more meaningful understanding of abstract skills and concepts that are being taught. Of course, this is tough work, but, you know, we remain goal-oriented. And so we'll move on to our next slide, what's working well. Thank you, Jamie. So we talk about a few things: school community commitment to excellence, high-quality instruction, opportunities for learners to be self-directed, and establish positive and active learning environment. And then also our support staff and our MTSS. So when we talk about school commitment, community commitment to excellence, we believe, of course, and this is directly from our school improvement plan, students have the right to learn and teachers have the right to teach. We adhere to, of course, and we support the rigorous Florida standards and continuous academic improvement, which with, of course, excellence as a goal is promoted and, of course, celebrated. We encourage active, supportive participation of parents and the community, as it is essential for the success of our students and our school. And then when we think about an established, positive, active learning environment, administrators, teachers, and staff members have a responsibility to work cooperatively, to support one another, display mutual respect, and provide a positive educational environment that meets the physical, academic, and social-emotional needs of all students. Students, of course, learn best, and teachers instruct best in an environment that is free of disruption. And we also believe that students have a responsibility to work cooperatively with one another and to demonstrate respect for adults and peers in the learning community. And we also feel that students should be held accountable for conduct that disrupts the learning environment. And then we talk about high quality instruction as part of those things that are working well. And we believe that every child can learn successfully when strategies that best meet his or her needs are identified and utilized. In addition to traditional subject areas, we also like to offer art, music, physical education, science, technology, and Spanish. There are also opportunities for our learners to be self-directed. And based on, and I'm going to share this is based on some feedback from our instructional rounds that we participated in 2 years ago. And our focus there was we were trying to develop assessment-capable learners. And so 100% of our classrooms had I can or I will statements on their boards. They were visible for the students so that the students had an idea of what to expect from the lesson. 50% of classrooms asked students to cite evidence to support their answer. 50% of the classrooms also displayed a student rubric. 50% of these classrooms also referenced the rubric during the instruction. 25% of classrooms reviewed learning targets and asked students to check work before they submit it. 50% of the classrooms had students making self-text connections. 50% of classrooms utilize also graphic organizers, which we found to be a very, very helpful tool in order to help students to be self-directed. 75% of the classrooms, students worked in groups on task assigned by the teacher, and we're talking about the academic discourse that students are gleaning from each other to really hone in on what is being taught. And then last but not least, 50% of table groups worked independently on assigning roles without teacher redirection or clarification. And then when we think about our support staff Our support staff, of course, execute a very robust MTSS protocols, and a recent survey, which was actually conducted by one of our LNS school counselors, suggests that more individualized refreshers need to be conducted in order to increase teacher understanding of MTSS. For instance, when asked, what is your familiarity with the behavioral RTI MTSS process? And the responses was kind of a Likert scale: no knowledge, 1 for no knowledge, 3 for some, and 5 for very knowledgeable. And the average familiarity rate was 3.47. When asked, what is your familiarity with the academic RTI MTSS process? The average familiarity rate, again, was 3.47. And then finally, when asked, what is your familiarity with the attendance RTI MTSS process? The average familiarity rate was 3.41. And then we had one final question about what additional supports training do you feel that you need to better understand the RTI MTSS process? And there was a resounding response, but the information in the response was centered around, I would like to have an online class that teaches proper steps of the MTSS process. So there's still some work to be done there. All right, so let's go to our next slide very quickly. Dating data. I love this piece. It's a love story. And so it's a 3-pronged approach. We look at, of course, IPDIPPs, and again, that's the individual professional development plans, as the catalyst for attraction. And we understand that relationships, of course, must start somewhere. So these initial IPDIPPI meetings serve as pivotal moments of attraction. This is also a golden opportunity for administrators to become attracted to the goals of the school, as well as to acclimate teachers to the goals of the school. And of course, these IPDIPPs, of course, are necessary for improving professional practice by allowing us to address some of the specific aspects of professional growth, including knowledge, skills, and competencies. And then when we look at instructional data chats as the catalyst for curiosity and enlightenment, data, of course, we understand that it becomes much more powerful when administrators and teachers and students use it as a tool to engage in rich conversation around what is going well, areas for improvement, and specific actions teachers can make to adjust instruction. We understand at Laurel and Coombe School that we must remain curious and be enlightened by what the data tells us. And then last but not least, student data chats as catalyst for commitment.
Excuse me, who's keeping track of the 10 minutes per person? I mean, should I mention that we're going over?
Are we? Okay.
We're going over the 10 minutes per person.
Okay.
And I hate to be the one, but nobody else is standing up, Dr. Asplin.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I love what you're saying, but I want to hear from Jamie too.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay. Awesome. All right, so I will fast forward to our next slide here. So we have some strategic planning that we're looking at our school improvement plan. And so we have a focus here in ELA and math. And basically, when we drill down into the data, we realized that we needed to do a little bit more work, even though, you know, all of our data points, we perform higher than the district and the state level, even including our ESSA data as well. And so when we look at, again, drilling down into the data, we're looking at ELA for 3rd grade as well as for 7th grade. And so we focused there, even though you see the percentages are at mid-70s, upper 70s, we focused there because we saw just a little bit of a dip there with those 2 grade levels. And so overall school proficiency goal, we're looking at 78%. And then for math, we saw that there was a little bit of a dip with 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And so you see the proficiency goals there for our math, as well as our overall school goal is at 82%. That's our focus for this year. And then some ongoing targets, Jamie? We're looking at our lowest quartile, and basically our strategy that we have included in our school improvement plan, we're looking at some small group instruction. and we're definitely trying to make sure that we're honing in on our lowest quartile. And even though we saw growth with our lowest quartile, we want to continue that trend. Our lowest quartile for both ELA and math went up about 3 to 4 points.
And I'm sure I can see why you wanted to make sure we saw that. You wanted to brag a little on how well you were doing. We appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you. And so I believe that concludes. And of course, we want to say thank you to our teachers, staff community, as well as our PTO, who provides some supplementary funding for us, and of course to our executive director for the Jumpstart funding that has helped us tremendously at Laurel Nokomis School. Thank you. Jamie.
Okay, so can you hear me?
You have 5 minutes, Jamie.
5 minutes. I'm ready. I'm ready. Can you hear? Okay. So in the honor of time, because I do want my high school colleagues to also have the opportunity to come. We've all worked really hard on these presentations, but I am going to blaze through mine. Having said that, I invite each of you, if you would like to get deeper into what we're doing at Oak Park, to please come out and sit, and we'll have a conversation about this because it's really exciting work. So thank you for the opportunity.
Or perhaps have you come back at a workshop, because you've got so much important things to tell us.
I do have important things to tell you. So thank you again for having me here. It is a privilege and an honor to be the spokesperson for Oak Park School, my fantastic faculty, staff, and my student population. So I'm not going to belabor you with our mission statement. You can read that on your own. I want to get right to what's working well. And so, as you know, everything improves when you set high expectations for students and staff, and that is what we have really strived to do over the last 5 years at Oak Park School. We're always looking for continuous improvement, and so in doing that, you have to look at your barriers and your challenges and what is getting in your way. And so I want to talk about PBIS really quickly, because our PBIS program is extremely vibrant at Oak Park School, and it is the foundation and the cornerstone of everything that we do at Oak Park. We have identified 3 areas in PBIS that we really focus on so that we can shore up that foundation. They include our academics, our behavior, and our social emotional learning for our kids. So you're probably wondering how we measure success. Well, really, I'm really excited to tell you this. It's evidenced. First and foremost, you'll see our award up there. Through we have been recognized as the only center school in the state of Florida as a model PBIS school. We were awarded bronze status in the year 2019-2020, and it's just been such a feather in the cap of our faculty, of our staff, of our families, of our students, because everybody has really rallied around and brought this to fruition. It's an incredible accomplishment for our school. And so we are well on our way to moving up the ladder. We are striving for silver recognition this year and looking forward to meeting that benchmark. MTSS really quickly. So we're also working really, really hard at doing MTSS well. One of the challenges at Oak Park School is that many of our students come to us from our sister schools already in Tier 3 intervention. And so what we have to do, we have to circle back and we have to start looking at Tier 1 interventions and Tier 2 interventions and provide those right alongside with the Tier 3 interventions. And that is something that our team has gotten really, really good at. And so I'd love to spend more time talking about that, but I want you to know that that process has been ever evolving. It changes regularly, and it is very individualized and specific to meet the needs of every one of our students. Academics, we are improving in there as well. We've really put an emphasis on high expertise teaching over the last several years. And I want to talk to you about why it's improved. I have 3 reasons really quickly about why we've been able to improve. First of all, the work that's being done within our PLCs has really driven us to the point where we have become super collegial We are data-driven, and we are also very non-judgmental. You have to extend a lot of trust to your colleagues and to the people around you to be able to go in and have fierce conversations about student learning and student growth and what the deficits are. And our team has done exceptionally well in working together and just exercising that vulnerability that it takes to be able to go in and have those conversations so that we can continue to work on the work. Number two, I want to talk really quickly about the lane changes for our SSP 4s going to SSP 7s, and that is attributed to the work of the board and the district and moving our paraprofessionals from SSP 4s to SSP 7s. They now feel valued as instructional leaders in our classrooms, and they work alongside tirelessly with our teachers, and they're providing one-on-one and small group opportunities, and so our teachers are really able to diversify and differentiate the instruction for all of our students who are requiring that not only the intervention but also the acceleration piece to their education. And finally, step 3, because hiring is such a challenge at Oak Park School. I know it's a challenge everywhere. I know that we face that everywhere, but more specifically so at Oak Park, because hiring ESE teachers, they're a critical need area, and there is definitely a shortage. And so one of the things that we're really proud about doing there is that we're starting to grow our own. And when I say that, I mean that we have dedicated paraprofessionals, paraeducators who come in and they really buy into what it is that we're doing there, and they start working toward their professional teaching certificates and getting certified and licensed so that they can come in and be collaborative members of our instructional team. And we're really proud of that. We probably have hired in the last, I think, 3 years, 8 of our classified teachers to become, or classified staff members, sorry, to become instructional leaders. And this year we also have 3 classified staff members, our paraprofessionals, who are working toward their certification. So that has been something that's been very helpful for us to be able to make sure that we stay staffed and that we're putting people who really are committed and passionate about working with students with special needs. Okay. Trying to fly. 2 minutes? Oh, all right. So really quickly, I want to talk to you about who we serve. One of the things that's unique that a lot of people don't recognize about Oak Park is that we're 4 schools on one campus: elementary, middle, high school, and postgraduate. And that is really unique. I don't think that there's anybody else that can speak to that. And when you're planning for everything, it can create some challenges. We serve FSA students who are on the Florida Standards Assessment, and we also serve students who are on alternate assessment. Those students make up 70% of our population, and our FSA students make up about 30% of our population. And at the bottom of this slide, you can see that by the end of the year 2022, we want to have at least 50% of our population of students in our underperforming subgroups be successful in making learning gains on the FSA and the FSAA. Okay? Going. How am I doing, Dr. Asplin? Am I rocking right along? 1 minute. Okay, this is a really important slide that I'm going to fly through. We are school rated. We are not school graded. And so that's really important to understand, and a lot of people do not understand the school rating system. They are comprised of 3 categories. You can either be unsatisfactory, maintaining, or commendable. And we have been making huge gains in terms of closing the gap on being a commendable center school in the state of Florida. We had a really great year in 2018, 2019. If you look at our data, we slid a little bit, but not in math like we're hearing across the board with everybody else. We actually continue to improve in math. We're working on our ELA and our reading. And I did a comparison with a sister center school, Lake Hills. Some of you have gone and visited that campus, and we're right on the heels. We're knocking on that door to make sure that we're going to be a commendable school, make this district proud. Our teachers work super hard and our staff to get us there. PBIS, again, I want to go back. I want to talk really quickly about our PBIS program and what that has done for our discipline statistics, because I think it's really important. We're talking a lot about academics, but I also want to share discipline data with you, and I'll draw your attention to the blue box that's all the way over on the right-hand side. We can talk about the the gauges later, but within the last year, we have had a reduction of discipline referrals 50% from the previous year. So we have decreased discipline referrals by 50%. We have decreased the number of in-school suspension days all the way down to 0, and that is simply because we do not do ISS at Oak Park School. It is not effective for our students. It's never a good idea to take kids out of a classroom and away from direct instruction. And so what we have done, we've created 2 restorative classrooms, one in elementary and one at middle, where our students who are in need of a time away from their regular classroom can go into this restorative setting and work with certified teachers and paraprofessionals, not miss the academic pieces, and work on restorative strategies so that they are able to reacclimate back into the classrooms. Okay, let's see. All right, what we're working on, I want to talk real quickly about our SS subgroups. I know you're looking at me like I have 5 seconds left, but this is important. So we have 3 areas for our SS subgroups that we continue to strive for and work toward. We need to hit a federal index of 41%. Where we are short of the mark with, interestingly enough, our white students. We are at 38% with our white students, 39% with our Hispanic students, and 40% with our Black students. Almost even more interestingly enough, we have hit the threshold for our students with disabilities and also our economically disadvantaged. So we're really proud of that. We, by hitting that threshold of over 41% with ESSA, with students with disabilities, we've got to know that we're doing something right and making sure that our kids are learning and they're getting what they need and we have the right people in front of them. Time, you want me to stop? Good. Okay, time. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Great job. Thank you. Dr. Covert, Miss Shelley.
Dr. Asplin, school board members, I promise this will be shorter than a Pineview graduation. I give you my word. Thank you so much for the opportunity. There we go. It's wonderful to be with you this morning, and our mission at Pineview is to provide a qualitatively different learning environment that nurtures a passion for intellectual curiosity, encourages risk-taking, independence, innovation, and is committed to a tradition of academic excellence and social responsibility. And so this morning, I will, let's go back. I will share with you an overview, very briefly, I think 6 minutes maybe, about the 93 weighted courses we offer, the 34 advanced placement courses we offer, the 9 dual enrollment courses we offer through UF and the University of South Florida, and those are offered by our Pineview teachers on our campus credentialed through those institutions of higher learning. And students also have the option to do online coursework. In addition, we do this and the excellence that we provide on our campus by ensuring all of our faculty are expected to have or be in the process of earning their gifted endorsement, which exceeds FLDOE requirements. In fact, Pineview is the learning center for offering gifted coursework throughout Sarasota County, anyone who is out of field or wishes to earn their endorsement. Moreover, Pineview partners with Fiddlers also to provide workshops throughout the year to parents and teachers in Manatee, Sarasota, and Charlotte counties on a variety of gifted topics. One of the workshops that we're most proud of is that we have hosted a workshop on underrepresentation of minority students in gifted education programs. So we brought a national speaker, a professor from Virginia, Dr. Joy Lawson Davis, who was our keynote speaker, and she was so impressed with the students who actually organized the workshop that she wrote this book, Empowering Underrepresented Gifted Students, Perspectives from the Field. And Chapter 1 is about Pineview and the students' voices in Chapter 1. So we're very, very proud of that. I will quickly skip to data, data, and more data. It's sort of water, water everywhere and not a drop to drink. We have an incredible amount of data. And I put this purposefully to be a busy slide to just show you a sample of the data that we have. If I could have fit more data tables on here, I would. This is the macro level that we begin with, and then in PLCs and departments, as well as grade levels, we drill down into the reporting categories. And what's interesting is this not only is EOC, FSA, LEOC, AP data, and the list goes on and on. Pineview administers the PSAT to all students beginning in the 8th grade, so by the time they take the PSAT and MSQT in their junior year, they're fully prepared for success. Our mean SAT score is almost 1,500 points. And in the lower right-hand corner, you'll be able to see it more on your screen. You see the actual school grade component, and that's the only one that I'll speak to. Pineview as a combination school has 11 categories on which we're graded. That's a 5-year trend table, and you can see in just about every category, we love to see 100 in all of them, but the 5-year trend, they're all generally in the upward direction, and we're very proud of the work that the teachers and students have put in. Out of those 1,100 possible points, Pineview earned last year 1,031, which is 1 point higher than they did the year before, and is the highest in the entire state of Florida. Again, this is just a sample, but I wanted to share that with you. See if I can go quickly. And for our AP students, 5 more. I'll try to cut it. For our AP students, our AP data, again, we offer 34 college-level courses, and those data are also truly amazing. AP tests, as you know, are scored 1 through 5, with 3, 4, and 5 being considered passing. Pineview students overall earned a passing rate out of the 1,900 AP tests we administered last year. Over 84% passed a 3, 4, or 5. We focus more on moving 4s to 5s and who scored at that highest level, and that we monitor on an ongoing basis. All of these rates that I'll share with you briefly exceed state and national data. In AP Physics C Mechanics, 78% of the students earned a 5. In AP Physics C Electricity and Magnetism, 52% earned a 5. AP Computer Science A, 60% scored a 5, and AP Calculus BC, which is the next highest level we offer, 63% scored a 5. And obviously, we progress monitor all of these along the way. The last slide, last 2 slides, I will briefly talk about. It's wonderful that I think the very first conversation Dr. Asplin and I had was about a strategic plan and how excited we were that the district was going to put this together under his leadership and the board's direction. Our Pineview School Improvement Plan takes our data and allows us to dovetail it with a strategic plan for the district. And that sort of synergistic ability is amazing. And so I've listed within that goal 1 of the district strategic plan, those 4 strategies within goal 1. We've dovetailed those with our Pineview plan. And finally, what work remains? We know from our teachers' in-depth analysis that integration of knowledge and ideas in ELA, that is from early grades all the way through, a continuing area of focus for us. And then I'd like to draw your attention to that last box in the bottom right. In addition to being part of our school mission, reaching out into the community and in creating those strategic partnerships is something we're proud of, and expanding those to support the needs of our students. One example is the recent partnership Pineview engaged with a local family foundation that wanted to remain anonymous. the school district, and specific Pineview donors, as well as PVA, our parent organization. We raised over $264,000 to support an FTE for 3 years as a college and career counselor position for grades 8 through 11. We already have a great college career counselor for our seniors. Lance Bergman does a fantastic job, but his focus has to be with our seniors. This position, grades 8 through 11, will support these efforts and allow them to be maximized and leveraged to an even greater extent as we open our new building and our new college and career center that I'd love to show off to you on January 21st when you'll be at Pineview for our ribbon cutting. Thank you.
You did great. You did great.
Thank you, Dr. Covert.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Shelley.
Yes. Okay, I get 11 minutes, Dr. Aspirin. I need 11 minutes, please.
You have 11.
Yes. Okay, yes, go ahead, please. Thank you. Since 2015 and 16, the staff at Booker High School, we worked really hard to implement this vision. 100% of Booker High School students will graduate college or career ready and become productive members of our society. We believe in the importance of 3 things: awareness, opportunity, and exposure. Because of the work that we have done, we are breaking the vicious cycle of generational poverty. Because of the work that we are doing, we have more students graduating from high school. Because of the work that we are doing, we are changing the trajectory of students' lives. Because of the work that we are doing, more of our students are graduating from Booker High School with a post-secondary plan. Because of the work that we are doing, we have more and more students earning, yes, college credit while in high school and industry certification. Because of the work that we are doing, we have fewer alumni graduating from high school and 3 years later, no longer qualifying for governmental assistance. Because of the work that we are doing, we have fewer alumni graduating from Booker High School, I'm so excited about this, that are not incarcerated. We are working diligently, and changing and breaking the vicious cycle of generational poverty, but we need your help. We need your support. Next, please. Here's a result of some of the work that we are doing at Booker High School. Since 2011, our graduation rate for our Black students went from 40 to 92% in 2020. Whites, 74 to 86%. Hispanics, 60 to 74. Our mix, 60 to 94. And we know that our free and reduced lunch, economically deprived, our students with disabilities, and our English language learners are all included in the demographics above. Now, enough of me talking about quantitative data. Let's hear some qualitative data from one of our students. I'd like to introduce you to Ziana Williams. Ziana Williams is a 2021 graduate from Booker High School. Let's hear from Ziana, please. Look who I ran into. Who's this? What's your name? What are you doing?
My name is Ziana Williams. I am an alumni of Booker High School. I graduated class of 2021, and I'm a freshman at the Florida Gulf Coast University, and I'm majoring in music education. I finally declared my minor in race and ethnic studies, so I'll be minoring in that as well. And yeah, I really enjoy the school, really enjoy the campus, and I can definitely say that Booker has impacted me definitely in my future endeavors, especially taking advantage of the College and Career Resource Room and with Mr. Lim Andrews as well. So I'm just grateful that I had the opportunity to go to school here all 4 years, and I'm loving where I'm at right now, and I can definitely say Booker has helped me reach my future goals.
You are awesome. Were you academically prepared?
Yes, of course. I did graduate with my ACE diploma, so I have the Fulbright Futures, which is great as well. And with me being a first-generation college student, I know my parents are definitely proud of me, and I'm happy that I can be making my parents proud as well.
Oh my. Ziana Williams attended and enrolled in Booker High School as a ninth grader with an FSA level score of 2. She maintained a 2 in all of middle school, but when she came to Booker High School, we made sure we used the necessary strategies to help place her into appropriate classes. She graduated in the top 2% of her class. We are very proud of Ziona. I want to share something about her graduating class. Her graduating class, when they entered Booker High School as ninth graders, 35% of them were proficient. But when they graduated from Booker High School, 87% of them were proficient. Continue, please. Well, everyone knows about the vision, and we know about graduation, but let me tell you a little bit about acceleration. Acceleration occurs when you have a student, while in high school, earn college credit or industry certification. The numbers that you see here are actual numbers, unduplicated numbers. Ziona mentioned she finished with the ACE diploma. She earned 21 college credits while in high school, but she's only counted once. And the numbers are there for your viewing. So we went in 2011 from 36 black students to 53 that earned college credit or industry certification. The white numbers are there, Hispanic and mixed. And because I really get excited when I see a move between our free and reduced lunch, I wanted to make sure I put those total numbers there for you. And again, some of those students, a large percentage of them, earn multiple college credit while in high school. And then you see it for students with disabilities and English language learners. Continue, please. Are we successful? Are we successful? I'm going to share 2 things with you. Number 1, our alumni data we receive from 2 data sources. The National Clearinghouse, they provide data for our students that are out of the state of Florida after they graduate from Booker High School, and every school as a matter of fact. And then we have the in-state data. It provides data for our students that are currently in state. Where you see here, are we successful? Let me ask you. From the years 2014-15 to 2018-19, that 5-year span, 0 to 30 students actually, after they left Booker High School 3 years later, qualified for governmental assistance. That's about 13%. The data that you see there is from in-state. And it's interesting because according to our students' post-secondary plans, when they leave Booker High School, National Clearinghouse out of state, mostly our VPA, Visual Performing Arts students, go out of state. But this in-state data, that's for our first-generation students and students that we would identify as at risk. So 13% generational poverty or no longer requiring governmental assistance. That same data range, wait a second, does that say no number there for pipeline to prison? You've got it. 3 years after high school, we are finding that 0% of Booker High School students are actually ending up in prison. Are we successful? I'll let you decide. When we come to continuing education, they were able to find between 42 and 68 students, and out of that, we were able to look at 80 to 108 of those students and find data on the number above, and we're looking at about 55% of Booker High School students. We can find them working on education beyond high school. Well, wait a second. What about your students that graduate college or career ready? They've already earned their industry certification, or those students that go to the armed services. Those numbers are not included. So we can add definitely some more percentages to that 55%. Progress, please. Yes, 4 minutes. Okay, great. Opportunities for growth. We have a lot of opportunities for growth. The first line that you see on top, that's Booker High School when we were a B school, 2018-19. That C that you see on the bottom, if we were graded last year, that's where we would be now. And you can look at the numbers and see that we have a lot of room for growth. We recognize at Booker High School, based on our creed, our initiatives, we are looking at ongoing support from the district with Jumpstart. We believe a mindset with our students, helping them to go for not knowing and making sure they understand the opportunities will help us to constantly improve. Mr. Cantis, school board members, Dr. Asplen, thank you for Jumpstart. We have a huge COVID slide. A large percentage of our students, our faculty, and yes, even the principal, we were all impacted by COVID and continue to be. I have one staff member on my campus. She lost 21 members of her family due to COVID slide or COVID deaths. I have students that are experiencing that as well. So we continue to be impacted. But with the COVID slide and all the money that we're going to receiving from Jumpstart, we are hoping and we know that we can then improve with homework assistance. We also have after-school tutorial. We're going to be providing transportation, computers, all for our students to help with the Jumpstart, so we thank you for that. In closing, last slide, we believe intentionally and deliberate focus on the bottom quartile students in those areas that we need to work on with support from the Jumpstart, we will continue to break the cycle of poverty, one family, one student at a time. Are we successful? We are moving in the right direction, but we need more support, and I'm so grateful for the community support when it comes to mental health. We get support with First Step, Sarasota Coalition, and also a lot of support from our community foundation and other support because mental health is real and we're struggling with that as well. I have never, ever, ever had to speak for 8 minutes, Dr. Asplen. And it was a challenge to get this accomplished, and I feel as though I'm missing a lot, but I'm very excited about our goal and our vision, which is align 100% of Booker High School students, yes?
No.
Oh, will graduate college or career ready and become productive members of our society. I thank you for listening, and I thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Dr. Shelley. Appreciate it.
I am amazed at how much you do. And that last slide, that, breaking the cycle of poverty one family at a time, that is something this whole community wants to get behind and help you. And, if you were running for office, I would have voted for you twice. But let me tell you, both of you, I know where you are at the bottom of the list. Both of your schools are at the bottom of the list, and that is the number of students who tested positive for COVID. You're the lowest in the high schools, and you are, Dr. COVID, you are lowest in all of the schools. So I know that you've worked hard on that, and you've kept those kids in school, and that is wonderful, and that's very good. So you can talk about all the times you're at the top, but I was glad to see that you're at the bottom on something, and I totally support. And your scholarship program that you've got going, amazing.
Thank you.
Just amazing. And we want to hear more from you when the new scores come out.
We're definitely moving in the right direction, and we believe that we're going to definitely improve. So thank you so much. And I would love to come back and talk about Booker Promise, of course.
Yeah, Booker Promise, yes.
Yes.
We got a minute.
Do we have a minute? Yeah. Okay, Jane Goodwin said no, not today, so I'll come back.
We both have many programs we would love to share with you.
Absolutely.
If we were invited back again.
I would love to come back because I want to show you some videos with my students that are in the armed services too and that are on the career track that are doing well. So yes, I would love to come back and engage you in a lengthy conversation about Booker Promise, which is a scholarship program that we started. So thank you, yes.
That's something else on your list, Booker Promise.
Thank you so much.
And, I really appreciate this, and I think we need to put more of our workshops on issues like this and hearing from the schools and hearing what they do. We used to have the schools come in and give us their school improvement plans.
Right.
And then, we do that. I really think we need to be looking at schools, and this was such a wonderful, wonderful program, but I know we've got lots of other schools out there that can do just as well also. So we'd like to see more of our effort put on things like this. We really, really appreciate what you've done for us.
Thank you for the opportunity. Honestly, as you can see, they are all incredible. And the work, when we talk about data, it might look a little different by school, by level, but it's all being used. And it's used for, again, they're driving decision and problem solving so that they can get the best and the most out of their students each and every day. So thank you for the opportunity.
Did anybody have any other?
Mr. Edwards?
Yes, quickly. I would first apologize for you guys that got cut short. I know how much work you put into that, and I definitely will want to hear that, whether in person or I would concur that they come back and the community gets to hear it as well. I could do this all day. So if you guys want to hang out, I'll just sit here and listen.
Well, I appreciate that, Mr. Edwards. And I think what we can do is maybe, over time, having maybe a couple of schools come in at a time just to give the 15-minute or so about what they're doing. They're all doing such great things, and it's hard to shove everything into 3 hours. We knew that, and didn't do a great job of keeping the time there. I should have done better on that, but I think, seeing what the schools do and all of our schools, it would be great if we were able to bring them in and have them talk for, another 10, 15 minutes, just to let you know what each school is doing.
I think what we need to do is put the timer on. I think we
should
could put that timer up to 10 minutes and give them a 2-minute warning, perhaps.
Yeah, that would be great. But I do want to thank our principals for being here and all the work you did put into that. Thank you very much. And for everything that you do all the time, every day. And the information that you shared today, this is your vision, this is what you're working on constantly, and at the same time, you have everyday situations that pop up that you're handling, investigating, working on, and then you're still moving forward with what's most important is the success of your students and moving them along with everything that you talked about today. So I really appreciate all you've done. And then the staff, thank you too for everything that you've done today. I really do appreciate it. And I look forward to more times like this too. And like I said, maybe not 3 hours, but maybe even if it is 1 hour and bring in a couple of schools, that'll be good. And I think we all would appreciate that. So, and thank you to members of the community who came out as well, and our charter school principals as well. Thank you very much. We do have some other refreshments back there if anybody would like to partake in that as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ah.